IdeaStream applies its multiple media to health and science. Topics you've said are important through radio and television reports and a content-rich website. IdeaStream supports healthy people, healthy places, and a healthy future for our community. Interviewing the experts, revealing the research, helping you to be well. What matters most to you is on air, online, on IdeaStream.
Funding for Be Well comes from the Dr. Donald J. Goodman and Ruth Weber Goodman Philanthropic Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, the Margaret Clark Morgan Foundation, the McGregor Foundation, St. Luke's Foundation, the Mount Sinai Healthcare Foundation, the Woodruff Foundation, and the Community Foundation of Lorain County.
You're watching the IdeaStream Be Well Network, your source for in-depth health news and information in Northeast Ohio.
Hello, I'm Marlene Harris-Taylor, and I'm here to share with you some of the best in health news and information produced by IdeaStream's award-winning Be Well Health team. You can find all of our Be Well Health reporting, in-depth interviews, and information you can use at our website, bewell.ideastream.org. And get the latest in health news and information for our community every month by signing up for the IdeaStream Be Well e-newsletter. Sign up online at ideastream.org/ehealthnews. There are over 60 million caregivers in the United States, and experts agree that number will continue to grow. Coming up next, we'll explore some of the complexities and challenges of caregiving in Northeast Ohio. Plus, we'll give you information that will help you and your family make informed decisions. Caregivers is coming your way next, right here on the IdeaStream Be Well Network. Stay with us.
The hardest part is losing my mom, losing that connection I had with her. I worry about my dad taking care of my mom and the stress that it puts on him.
It is much like having a child, except that she doesn't talk. I have never felt bitter nor resentful, only sad because I remember her the way that she was.
We do find higher rates of depression and anxiety, as well as cardiovascular disease among caregivers.
When you're trying to raise a family, when you've got 4 kids as well as a 77-year-old, it's a challenge.
He was not ready for a nursing home. I'm on this merry-go-round that I can't seem to stop or get off.
We do need to get serious about coming up with better solutions.
Personal stories from local families, tips and advice from those on the front lines, coming up next on Be Well, Caregivers.
Over 60 million. That is how many caregivers there are in the United States right now. And experts agree that number will continue to grow. Hello, I'm Sarah Jane Tribble. Welcome to this episode of IdeaStream's Health Information Series, Be Well. This next half hour, we will explore some of the complexities and challenges of caregiving in Northeast Ohio, plus give you information that will help you and your family make informed decisions. As you might expect, caregiving comes in all shapes and sizes, from people caring for an ailing spouse to those who have kids and older parents all under the same roof, to folks juggling long-distance care. We begin with the story of Jim Traxler and his wife of 51 years, Karen. 5 years ago, the couple was in the midst of enjoying their golden years, something they planned well for. But as we all know, even the best laid plans can run amiss. IdeaStream's Kay Colby takes us on the Traxler's journey, highlighting 4 key phases most caregivers go through and a taste of the challenges they present.
Yeah, tear out the vein there. That's good. The scariest thing, I think, was when we were at the neurologist. He showed us the scans from the MRI.
So the white spaces represent space because the brain cells have died and the front part of the brain is shrinking. This is a disease that unfortunately doesn't have any treatment or cure.
Oh, that's so scary. I mean, that inside her brain, it's just shrinking and drying up.
Karen was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, or FTD, which gradually robbed her of the ability to speak and eventually comprehend.
FTD I had never heard of, and I didn't know anything about it.
So basically, one of your first jobs was research.
Yes. I spent quite a bit of time on the computer looking for references to the disease and advice that I could find there.
Jim also reached out to the Cleveland Alzheimer's Association. It runs monthly classes for patients and caregivers newly diagnosed with memory and thinking disorders. But eventually, Jim wanted more tailored information just about FTD, so he joined one of the association's specialized support groups.
I didn't go to the support group to help other people in the beginning. I went there because I needed help.
We don't want to give anybody false hope or candy coat this. We really want to give them the information that they're going to need to face the challenges that they have in the future. Jim has changed from being that person that's trying to take in all of the information to being someone that wants to share the information that he has. So when he really finds a strategy that works well with his wife, he's sharing it with the other caregivers in the group, hoping it'll help them as well.
Come on over here, let's comb your hair. I don't know how good I would be at giving care to someone else with the same disease. It wouldn't be the same. I'm not a professional. I'm sort of learning on the job kind of thing. I do it because she is my wife and I love her, and we've had this lifelong romance, and so just want to keep it going. So you can sit right there while I practice a little bit. It is much like having a child, except that she doesn't talk.
Mom, hey Mom. The hardest part is losing my mom. I mean, losing that connection I had with her. There you go. Very good. Good job. All right. To watch, someone that was so well put together and had so much going, lose so much of that. Yeah, it is very difficult.
Today, there's no initiative. If I didn't get her out of bed, she would probably never get out of bed. Let's go wash your hands. Get your hands wet. Put soap on. So you kind of just continually adapt because it doesn't stay the same. At one point, I was able to talk her through the shower process, but eventually she didn't understand, so I had to get in the shower with her, but that was difficult with a normal shower head. So I got this dual shower head. I can take this off and bathe her using the hose. All right, come on, Karen. We're gonna go in.
Eventually, at the doctor's suggestion, Jim put Karen in daycare 2 days a week.
Hi, Karen. Good morning. Hi, Jim.
Good morning. The first time I took her, I can't tell you how guilty I felt. Like I'm dropping her off and I'm just, sweeping her under the rug so I don't notice. I felt really guilty about that.
How about some of the grass? Want to try that one?
Because I just think, it's my job to take care of her.
See if that one fits.
It's good for her because it keeps her very active, but probably more importantly, it allows Jim to spend some time for himself so that he can recoup as a caregiver.
I worry about him, my dad, taking care of my mom and the stress that it puts on him. I think it's a lot. I worry about if something happens to him, what we're gonna do. I worry about her. I wonder what's gonna happen in the future.
In business, you are very trained to plan ahead and know exactly where you're gonna be 6 months from now. I have no idea where we're going to be 6 months from now.
These diseases are invariably fatal. So the next phase of care is deciding whether or not to keep someone at home versus placing them in a facility like a nursing home or assisted living.
When it becomes impossible for me to deal with, then I'll know it's time. It will be excruciatingly hard because it means the end point of a 24/7 relationship. Do you remember going into the Cairo Museum? I have never felt bitter nor resentful. A little sad, only sad because I remember her the way that she was. Karen will never be better than she is today. So let's just cherish today, and then it's not so hard. So what'd you think? Was that good? Huh? You like that? Okay.
The Traxler story illustrates the emotional toll caregiving can take on a spouse. If you find yourself facing a situation like this and wondering how to get help, our health team has compiled a list of links and resources in Northeast Ohio, all available online. It's easy to find, and here's how.
At bewell.ideastream.org, our caregiving page highlights resources for family caregivers. There you'll find links with answers to common questions and information on adapting to new roles and responsibilities. You can also explore exclusive content from our continuing coverage on caregiving from our team of reporters here at IdeaStream. Find it all at bewell.ideastream.org.
Earlier in the program, we heard about a husband caring for his wife. Now we turn to a different kind of family caregiver, someone who cares for an aging parent and young children. According to the Pew Research Center, over 1 in 8 Americans aged 40 to 60 is in what's called the sandwich generation, meaning they're raising children and caring for an aging parent. Living in the squeeze of the sandwich generation has lots of consequences, both for individual families and society as a whole. IdeaStream's Kay Colby shares the ups and downs of one family in Summit County.
Dad, I can hear you when I was sitting on the track.
We don't get to eat a lot of meals together at that table, but when we do, I love that. I could sit back and get tearful watching that. I love family. I wanted a big family when we got married. I said 3, but somehow we got 5.
Over the years, the Lehman family has shared both triumph and tragedy. One recent challenge revolves around Scott Lehman's father, 77-year-old Bob, also known as Papa. Bob Lehman's health declined after he lost his wife to cancer in 1998. He's now blind and suffering other complications from diabetes.
It's horrible, you know. So you go from watching your mother get, pass away from cancer, and then watching him, because when you're growing up, your dad's your dad, he's the rock.
All right, now veer to the right. Okay.
We're going to step right in here.
Bob Lehman's doctor first brought up the need for full-time care.
Well, it's a difficult conversation when you approach a patient about that. I think it's hard for the patient because they think they will lose independence.
Bob Lehman agreed to move in with the family, and without hesitation, Georgia Lehman, who's also managing a family business, stepped up to be the full-time caregiver for her father-in-law.
That thing is cold. Your insulin thing.
Okay.
It just needed to be done. I love Papa. He was not ready for a nursing home. My husband was not ready for him to be in a nursing home. So this was our way of making that a little bit smoother for everybody.
I don't know how the heck she does it. Yeah, she truly is a superwoman.
It's high stress, and it's full throttle. As far as, getting kids, to and from wrestling, baseball, football, dance, and taking my dad, to all of his doctor's appointments.
Besides stress, there's also economic fallout.
Watch that door.
Studies show women bear the brunt of unpaid caregiving duties and sacrifice the most when it comes to making career adjustments. A 2011 MetLife study looked at the impact on adults over age 50 caring for an aging parent. It found over a lifetime, individual female caregivers lose about $324,000 in lost wages and Social Security benefits.
A lot of women opt in the short term, the best solution, let me cut back my hours or quit so I can take care of mom or dad. But in the long term, they're jeopardizing their financial security and well-being.
Nolker says the economic ripples of caregiving stretch beyond individual families and hit society as a whole. According to the Aging Institute at the University of Pittsburgh, American businesses lose more than $10 billion annually, stemming from things like lost productivity and absenteeism due to caregiving.
There's an unpredictability to caregiving that necessitates really quick pivots on the part of the family caregiver where they have to call and say, I can't make it in today. So there are all kinds of adjustments that need to be made, and particularly when they're sandwiched. Can you imagine childcare and all the sicknesses that children have, and you add on to that an older adult who has a very fragile health status?
Once their youngest was in school, Georgia Lehman had planned to go to work full-time for an outside company.
We've put that on hold. I won't do anything like that until, as long as Papa's here with us, I'll continue doing this.
I don't look at it as so much of a burden, but more of an opportunity, and being blessed that we're going to have this time together, that we do have this time together.
Did you take that vocab test today or no?
Scott Lehman remains in awe of his wife.
She has a huge heart, and her and I have been through a lot in life. We lost a daughter back in 2001. It was the day after her second birthday. So that drew us closer together, gave us a stronger bond. And then when this came up with my dad, there was no hesitation for her at all. That's how big of a heart she has.
You do it because you're family, and this is what family does.
You grow together, you stick together.
Yep, you grow, you shape, you fall, you get up, you do all that together.
Family caregivers do it all, but not without a price. The stress is unrelenting and continuous.
I say that sometimes, that I'm on this merry-go-round that I can't seem to stop or get off, and it's going the same way all the time. And I think of things that, we got to change this. This can't continue like this, but it just continues, keeps going and going and going.
Okay, thanks, Zach.
For now, Georgia Lehman stays focused on the positives, like what her children are learning.
People's life changes, and you gotta work around it in your life, and it affects everyone around you, and you just have to work through it, and you have to help and do what you can do, because that's the right thing to do.
Here, Papa, I'll help you.
Okay.
I'll answer his phone, I'll help him with his dinner, whatever we have to do to help him and make him comfortable, then we'll do it.
You did real good.
As Georgia Lehman's story shows, it can be both rewarding and very tough to be a sandwich generation caregiver. With me now to provide some concrete tips and advice for those who find themselves in this squeeze is Philip Rumwell. He's a co-author of the Sandwich Generation's Guide to Elder Care and a professor at Kent State University. Philip, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
What advice do you have for folks who may be entering that sandwich generation caregiving experience soon?
Well, I think the first thing is that it's never too early to begin the process of planning, and to start that process as soon as you feel that you might be having to take on that elder care responsibility. The key really is open communication with your elderly loved one about his or her health status, about his or her preferences in terms of care, what types of care might be required, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And also to begin the process of talking about your elderly loved one's financial status, insurance benefits, things of that nature. Get that dialogue going as soon as you possibly can.
Right, luck being with those who are prepared.
Yes.
Yes. So what if I'm already in that situation? What tips do you have for those who are already taking care of elderly parents and kids at the same time?
A couple of things come to mind. One is maintaining the integrity of the relationship that you had with your elderly loved one prior to the need for elder care. Sometimes this role reversal that takes place within families when the child is taking care of the parent can be very stressful and very complicated. And honoring that relationship that the elderly loved one played in the family, I think, is very important. Also understanding resources that are available either in your community or at the national level that can help in managing this very complicated process of elder care. Many people seek to retain elder law attorneys, for example, geriatric medical specialists, financial planners who specialize in elder care as well. Mm-hmm. These are some of the resources that we direct people to quite often as they go through this process.
Those are really great tips. Thank you very much for joining us, Philip.
Sure thing, thank you.
You're tuned to Be Well, a half-hour WVIZ PBS special focused on caregivers, those family members who step up to the plate and take care of aging loved ones. Thanks for joining us. It's typical for adults these days to move away from their hometowns, whether it's for a better job or to follow a spouse. But that can create a challenging situation when a person's aging family members need care. Hence, the rise of long-distance caregivers, defined as those who care for someone who lives at least 1 hour away. It's estimated that more than 10% of caregivers fit into this category, and that number is growing. In this next story, you'll see how providing care for a family member at a distance can present a whole new set of challenges. IdeaStream's Lauren Wilson has the story.
All right. Let's go. Do you want to go out the front door or do you want to go out the back door?
Front door.
Okay, let's go.
Caring for a parent or relative in the same zip code can be hard enough, but caring from a distance brings with it added burdens.
Let's get in the car here.
People, as they're getting older, are going wherever they have to get jobs these days. You know, you follow the job. There isn't always a job where you want it to be. And that has accelerated sort of over the last few decades. But we also see more and more people moving when they retire.
Susan Dillon grew up in Berea, Ohio, where her parents currently live, but now she lives 5 hours away in Indiana. 2 years ago, her father, Lloyd Snowdeal, started to decline after experiencing a variety of health issues, including dementia.
I think the biggest help for my mom is when I'm there to make sure that someone's with my dad. When I'm there, I'm also able to help with some of the hygiene needs that my dad has. It's a spot that gets hard to get.
She does a lot more pampering than I'm able to do. I'm glad that she could come. It's sort of a sacrifice for her to do that.
Hey, Zach, can we help you unload the dishwasher, please? I'm definitely in a juggling act in my life, juggling between home, work, going out to Ohio every other weekend. My husband and I have 5 children. When you're doing the juggling act, you learn how to prioritize and you learn how to let things that aren't as important to slide. I leave my suitcase packed because I go out to Ohio so frequently. So I find that it's a lot more efficient.
And then there's stress. In fact, studies find that long-distance caregivers face higher rates of family tension than other caregivers.
The emotional toll, I think, is significant for the distant caregiver. Depression, anxiety, just feeling stress in general is much more significant and much more prevalent in that population.
There is a lot of anxiety that goes along with wondering what's happening when you're not in the same town as your parent or grandparent. It is a chronic stressor for people.
Going to Ohio every other weekend has really made it difficult for me to feel connected in the community. Right now I feel like I'm almost am in limbo. I don't really feel connected out there, and I also don't feel real connected here in Muncie.
Feeling in limbo is common for long-distance caregivers, but experts say there are ways to prepare for and mitigate some of the challenges associated with the role.
While they're here visiting sometime, go to physician appointments with family members so they can develop a relationship, particularly with the primary care physician who's taking care of their family member.
Other things to keep in mind: collect all information on your loved one before a crisis hits, like medical records and the medications they take. Experts also recommend getting paperwork in order ahead of time in case you need to take an unpaid leave of absence from work. If a nursing home is the route your family is taking, do your research, even try a surprise visit or two. And be sure to have an emergency plan ready. Although the road isn't easy, Dillon says she's happy to make sacrifices in order to care for her father.
Even though there are financial costs, even though I spend a lot of time in the car, that to me is really not important. What's important is doing what's good and right, what you should do, helping other people. And in my case, what's good and right in this case is helping my parents at this time of need.
Good.
You like that?
So far in this program, we've shared stories about spouses caring for partners, about sandwich generation caregivers, and just now about caring for loved ones from a distance. In every case, it's obvious the job isn't easy, and experts say it's important for the caregiver to make sure they take care of themselves as well. With me now to discuss this is Sarah Douglas, who studies caregiving and is an associate professor at Case Western Reserve's Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing. Thanks for coming in, Sarah.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, I understand that in addition to studying caregiving, you also are a caregiver dealing with the sandwich generation as well as long-distance caregiving at the same time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Both my parents are ill. My mother has Alzheimer's and my father's had a stroke, and they live in the Philadelphia area. So I'm a good 7.5 to 8 hours away by car. And then I also have a child at home that I care for who has some other issues. And so Basically, it's a matter, as most caregivers know, of juggling multiple roles.
Right, right. So what kind of advice do you take to heart yourself when you want to care for yourself?
Actually, one of the most important things I've done was hired a case manager. And I found by finding somebody who could help me with the care of my parents, because I'm at such a distance, that I could call on that individual and they could check on my parents, or if there was a problem and I wasn't sure, they could be my eyes and ears. Now, if you have family or loved ones or other people, they can serve that role as well. But that has been a tremendous help for me in terms of being so far away.
That's really great advice. So as opposed to burnout, I know that a lot of caregivers in the research that you've done, you've found burnout is a key factor. Can you talk a little bit about the burnout and the effect that has on the caregiver and how to avoid it?
Sure. There's certainly physical aspects of caregiving, but primarily it's the emotional component of it that really seems to contribute most to burnout. And as all of us who are juggling multiple roles and who are worried not only for our kids and our spouse, but also for our loved ones at a distance, it's really difficult oftentimes to juggle all of that at once.
The emotions.
Yeah, the emotions. And so basically getting help in terms of help with the roles of caregiving, finding some sort of support. And for some people, a support group is helpful. For me, I'm not a support group kind of person. So for me, it was helpful to sort of divvy up tasks and ask other members of the family to help. Again, it depends on the individual. And then I also think it's important for your healthcare provider to know that you're a caregiver so they can keep an eye on you. Because the bottom line is that the research shows that caregivers who have a lot of emotional strain, and there are at least about 40% of caregivers have a high degree of strain, that their chances of dying in the next 4 years is 60% greater than caregivers who don't have high strain. So it's really important for yourself as a caregiver to make sure to try to find the sources of support that are going to be helpful to you.
Wow, good advice, great information. Thank you so much for coming in, Sarah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sarah Douglas is an associate professor at Case Western Reserve's Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing. As we've heard throughout today's show, caregivers face a number of challenges as they juggle the rest of life's demands. We hope some of the information and advice shared in this program will help you in your situation, whatever that may be. That's all the time we have. Thanks for joining us, but before we go, remember to visit our website where you can find a wealth of resources in Northeast Ohio to help answer the questions you might have about caregiving. Here's how to find that information.
You can find valuable community resources on our website at bewell.ideastream.org. Click on the caregiving link. There you'll find tools and information to help guide you through the caregiving process. Everything from tips to dealing with the emotional burden of being a caregiver to financial planning advice and options for home-based care. You can find all that and more at bewell.ideastream.org.
I'm Marlene Harris-Taylor. Thanks for watching this IdeaStream special on the complexities and challenges of caregiving in Northeast Ohio. Find this and other Be Well Health specials at ideastream.org/BeWellSpecials.
This is the IdeaStream Be Well Network.
Did you know a survey showed that in 2015, 28% of children removed from their homes in Ohio stemmed from parental opioid addiction? In 6 years, the time children remained in foster care increased 19%. And in 2016, the state spent $138 million on placement costs for children in substance abuse cases. Experts now call children the forgotten victims of the opioid epidemic.
One of the important factors in the increased need for family caregivers is the stress felt by the caregivers, which in turn can negatively impact the health of the caregiver. In our series, Derailed by Stress, IdeaStream's Be Well Health team examined the many negative effects of stress on our health. As part of that series, I explored the impact of caregiver stress on 2 Northeast Ohio families.
Yeah. So I'm about to fix you something to eat so you can come in and see what I'm fixing. I don't want that. Well, yeah.
Betty Halliburton and her 79-year-old mother, Jean, live just outside Lorain. The two have been roommates for years, but 5 years ago, her mother was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Now her 55-year-old daughter has gone from roommate to primary caregiver. Halliburton's mother, a retired dry cleaning business owner, still has a vibrant mind, but several years of chemo treatment have zapped her energy.
I tire easy, and my mind tells me I can do these things, and I get started, you know, but I have a thing about no dishes in the sink, and this thing about making my bed. So I still do a little things. It's just like it's hard for me to bend. I have bad knees, and I need a knee replacement. But after I found out I had cancer, then I just decided I wasn't going to go that route.
Her daughter is juggling a full-time job and caring for her mother. And according to a new report from the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, she is not alone. In fact, women in their mid to late 50s are doing the heavy lifting in this country, providing most of the home care for sick loved ones. Halliburton says her family and co-workers are clueless about the amount of stress she's under trying to do it all.
Just as I have needs or what things I need to do, I'm trying to manage hers. I got medicine to pick up. Did you go by and pick that up for me? Did you remember to mail my letter? Did you do this? And she, now that she knows how to text message, she is a pistol.
Halliburton says the stress caused her to fall back into poor eating habits and she gained weight, which is a major issue in her family where there's a history of heart disease in women.
It's good to see you.
45 miles away in Hudson, another Northeast Ohio family is struggling with caregiving.
So you working on a puzzle here?
Something now.
Marsha Robeson visits her 70-year-old husband, John, nearly every day at this assisted living facility. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease about 8 years ago. She provided his care at home since then, but about 2 months ago, it became too much. Stressed out and exhausted, she made the difficult decision to move him to a nearby memory care unit.
Unfortunately, Alzheimer's patients usually get up several times during the night. Near the end, my husband was up 4, 5, 6 times a night. He would get up, get dressed, put his shoes on, and he was ready to go. And I'd say, "No, sweetheart, it's the end. It's the middle of the night." So I was not getting a full night's sleep at all.
Robeson said her husband had also wandered off and had to be found by police.
It's like taking care of a child, a grown-up child that just, you know, it's stressful.
Adding to her stress, she suddenly had to go from being a homemaker to running the family business with her son, Brian. Her son said Robeson's health suffered from the weight of all the pressure.
She's had 2 episodes that were very, not panic attack, but heart attack related, but were no heart attacks. All the signs and symptoms, but the EKGs were clear, everything else was fine, but just everything that goes with a heart attack and just that level of stress. It's been immense.
According to the national report, some people are spending more than 250 hours a month providing care for loved ones, almost the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs. The researchers also found many caregivers are suffering from health problems, including elevated stress hormones, emotional distress, anxiety, and social isolation.
I know of many situations where a local caregiver is caring for a loved one who has a significant number of healthcare needs, sees 5 physicians, is taking 20 different medications, has multiple different appointments. That's very demanding. That's very stressful on a caregiver.
Both Halliburton and Robeson said they took action to get their stress under control. Halliburton is doing a better job of managing her eating and her weight.
Find your happy places, moments of happiness. If it's going to the movies by yourself and getting a big box of popcorn, if it's walking in the park, whatever that is for you, find some time. People say there's no time. I don't have time. They let their hair go, they let their weight go, they're looking all old. I still got some time to live, honey. I got a few more moments left in my life.
Robeson, who's finally getting some much needed rest, urges other caregivers faced with a decision about whether they can continue to care for their loved one at home to assess the situation before there's an emergency.
Don't wait until you're at your wit's end or something happens, they harm you or harm themselves or wander away or something like that.
The national report is calling on the medical community to be more proactive and develop more support programs for those doing this important task of caring for their loved ones. Are you the caregiver for a family member in Northeast Ohio? Let us know how being a caregiver has affected your life by sending us an email at bewellhealth@ideastream.org. To learn more about caregiving, caregivers, and to see all the latest health reporting by our Be Well Health team, visit us online at bewell.ideastream.org. And you can find all of our series Derailed by Stress online as well at ideastream.org/stress. As we just heard, chronic stress can contribute to a variety of health problems, including obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and depression. In our next story, my colleague Kay Colby explores how chronic stress can set off a series of biological events in the brain and body that may play a role in some mental health issues. It's another report in our series, Derailed by Stress.
When we come upon danger, our body is designed to initiate the so-called fight or flight response.
A whole cascade of events starts off, and it's really initiated by the brain, and it's communicated to peripheral organs that control things like heart rate, blood pressure, and very importantly, release of hormones that are responsible for adjusting bodily resources to meet a challenge.
The release of hormones refers to cortisol, which is known as the stress hormone. Cortisol is designed to be a good thing. It helps the body rally energy to fight danger or face challenges in stressful situations. But when stress becomes chronic, the cortisol response can become what experts call maladaptive.
The system is designed really to be kept within a very narrow range of responses. So the response is initiated, it should be shut off, and that should be adaptive. What happens under chronic stress is the system continues to be stimulated, and that can cause a lot of things that these stress hormones do to flip from being beneficial to being damaging.
Dr. Herman is a neuroscientist who runs the Stress Neurobiology Lab at the University of Cincinnati, where he studies the effect of chronic stress on the brain. Herman focuses on a communications pathway between two parts, a section of the prefrontal cortex known as Area 25 and the amygdala, which is involved in processing emotions like anxiety and fear.
So this is an area of the brain that basically says, okay, I've integrated all this sensory information, and I've detected something bad, and you had better react to it, right? It's kind of like an alarm system, if you will. And what Area 25 does is it actually connects with the amygdala and holds it under control. The notion is that left to its own devices, the amygdala would be creating fear, negative emotion, etc., in inappropriate contexts when you don't want it to.
The pathway between the amygdala and Area 25 is supposed to be highly regulated, but with chronic stress, the elevated cortisol may disrupt the circuitry, and Area 25 may lose its ability to control the amygdala. Experts believe that disruption may be one thing that can predispose people to some forms of mental illness.
That's one of the things that is thought to happen in depression, is that you lose the ability of Area 25 and the amygdala to work together. So as a consequence, you don't have that level of Area 25 control, and that results in kind of emotional dysregulation, if you will.
The disruption is also thought to play a role in post-traumatic stress disorder, which can affect war veterans. Besides the brain, the elevated cortisol that comes from chronic stress has negative effects on other organ systems, including the liver, which can lead to metabolic problems and act like a double whammy for things like obesity and diabetes.
It's a result not necessarily of cortisol being the evildoer, but it's cortisol interacting with other physiological processes that are already ongoing. It can compound the already ongoing damage that is associated with being obese or having diabetes. So I kind of think of it as a hormone that participates in making things worse.
That report is part of our series, Derailed by Stress. You can find the entire series online at ideastream.org/stress. Find all of our Be Well health news and information at bewell.ideastream.org. And get the latest in health news and information for our community every month by signing up for the IdeaStream Be Well e-newsletter. Sign up online at ideastream.org/ehealthnews.
You're watching the IdeaStream Be Well Network, your source for in-depth health news and information in Northeast Ohio.
Did you know that Medicaid is a major provider of health insurance for low-income residents in Ohio? Nearly 3 million people are covered. The largest group is families with children at 59%, followed by 700,000 people who were added to the Medicaid rolls when Ohio expanded the program under the Affordable Care Act. Seniors in long-term care and disabled individuals are also eligible for Medicaid in Ohio. To find out more, visit bewell.ideastream.org.
Go to health.ideastream.org to visit the Be Well website. You'll find information, links, videos, and radio stories, all designed to help you better understand obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Find out how you and your family can take advantage of free health screenings at area hospitals. And view special content provided by our partner, Net Wellness, a consumer health website from Case Western Reserve University, The Ohio State University, and the University of Cincinnati. Visit health.ideastream.org and be well.
I'm Marlene Harris Taylor. Stress is something we all experience every day, but new research points to the role chronic stress may play in health disparities in minority groups, particularly in African Americans. African Americans have higher rates of heart disease, higher rates of high blood pressure, and higher rates of certain forms of cancer than whites. In the next installment of our Derailed by Stress series, I examine how the added stress from racial bias has both psychological and physical consequences for the parents and teenage children of one Cleveland family. Erica Brown is a mother trying to balance it all. Her work as a community network builder at Neighborhood Connections, and along with her husband, raising 3 teenage kids in Cleveland's Mount Pleasant neighborhood. While raising teens is challenging for every parent, Brown says these days raising African American boys brings an added layer of stress, both mentally and physically, due to the constant worry about racial bias.
A white parent might say, take that hood off and take your hands out your pocket and stand up straight, but not because you automatically become a suspect and now somebody's gonna be following you around the store, and not for personal safety reasons.
Brown added that as a black parent, even when her kids are a few minutes late, her heart starts to race.
It's the difference between having the luxury, because it is a luxury, of being like, oh, they're a few minutes late. Kids being kids. Oh, they didn't call when they got there. No big deal. I'll talk to them when I talk to them. No, I don't have that luxury. I have absolute flat out panic if you're late, if you're not where you're supposed to be, if you didn't call me as soon as you got there. Like, I'm losing it.
I've seen it.
154, 349.
Recent high-profile cases involving police shooting and killing unarmed blacks, such as the Tamir Rice case in Cleveland, has added to her angst. Her husband, William, who's a server at a luxury downtown restaurant, says he's been stopped while driving so much, he plans ahead for an encounter with the police.
You get pulled over, always have my information accessible because I need my information, blap, boom, information is on my lap. Code switching as they call it. I've already decided I'm going to change my dialect in my dialogue. I've already, straight up eye contact, not too much movement.
Dr. Monica Webb Hooper from the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine says people of color face the usual stress of life, but it's often compounded with the psychological distress from having experiences of racial discrimination.
And the literature suggests that there are negative consequences, both psychologically and physiologically, to race-related stress, and these include anxiety, fear, self-blame, self-doubt, resentment, anger, paranoia. And these experiences happen for many people of color over a period of time. And if you're the non-recipient, it's difficult to understand.
Dr. Hooper says the chronic activation of the stress system can lead to a number of medical conditions, including heart disease and hypertension.
And there's evidence that the allostatic load, or the toll of cumulative stress on the body, is greater among African Americans compared to their white counterparts. And this is problematic because it essentially means that African Americans are subject to a greater propensity to be diagnosed with a stress-related medical condition.
Erica Brown is convinced her high blood pressure and insomnia are due in part to this added stress.
I didn't want to know what my first child was. When he was a boy, I was so happy that he was healthy and I was so happy, but I just would hold the baby and just cry because I was just like, this is going to be hard. And I'm so sorry that it has to be hard for you. And then the second one came and he was a boy too. And I love my boys and I'm so happy to have them, but it's so freaking hard for no reason. You know, and every black parent has had this conversation. My mother had it with me. You gotta run faster. You gotta do twice as much to get half as far. You gotta do this, you gotta do that. You have to overachieve just to be seen as a basic achiever. And that just drives me crazy because they are awesome kids.
Dr. Hooper cautions many African American women fall into the trap of the strong black woman stereotype of trying to do it all, taking care of family members, working, and dealing with the added stress of being black. Hooper says being resilient has its benefits, but it's also risky.
If you feel like you always have to be strong and that you have to take care of everyone first, this is an additional problem that may take a toll on our health.
Compared to white women, African American women have higher rates of many chronic diseases related to stress, including obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. And the rate of stroke in black women is double that of white women. Erica Brown says she actively works to keep stress under control. She tries to find quiet time to decompress. Dr. Hooper, who viewed our interview with the Brown family, says she's on the right track. Dr. Hooper suggests other coping strategies, which include participating in religious services, seeking family support, engaging in relaxation techniques, including meditation, and finding time for recreation or some pleasurable activity where you remove yourself from the worries of the world each day. For his part as a father, William Barrett says just hearing his kids at home laughing and joking with each other in the one place he knows they're safe is the best antidote for the stress he lives with every day.
None of the results that you want.
That report on the role chronic stress plays in health disparities in minority groups through the eyes of a local African American family is part of IdeaStream's Be Well series, Derailed by Stress. For more information on that series, which looks at the negative health effects of long-term stress, visit us online at ideastream.org/stress. And for all of IdeaStream's Be Well Health news and information, be sure to visit us online at bewell.ideastream.org. In part 2 of this story on the added stress of racial bias, we explore how Eric Brown, the oldest son of this family, has had to navigate the stress of increased scrutiny by police as he's matured from an adolescent into a teenager. A 17-year-old Eric Brown waits for the bus after school to get home to the Mount Pleasant area of Cleveland. He sometimes worries that people don't look past his skin color and his big bushy afro to see the bright, straight-A student inside. After his 14th birthday, he had a growth spurt, and Brown noticed a change in attitude of many white people.
I'm not really scary, I'm not really threatening, but just to be treated like I was, it hurt a lot to just have to walk around with that. People shuffling away whenever I got close, you know. It kind of hurts for people to change up the way they see you.
During his freshman year in high school, he had an encounter with the police. Some teenagers were fighting downtown, and even though he wasn't involved, Eric says he was hit with mace in the eyes when police targeted a group of kids.
I got handcuffs put on me until I could prove that I wasn't a part of any of that.
That incident sparked a change. Eric says he stopped wearing hoodies, became less outgoing with strangers of other races, and decided to dye his hair blue so that police could distinguish him from other black men.
He used to always wear brightly colored shirts under his school shirt, and he had a big blue afro. So he could take off his school shirt and he had a blue or a fuchsia or a purple shirt on under it and a big blue afro. He says, I don't fit the profile.
It's a self-preservation. It's whoever you're looking for is not me, because I got blue hair.
His mother said it broke her heart that at such a young age, her son was suffering from stress over racial bias. His concerns about being racially profiled and being perceived as a threat were legitimate, says Dr. Monica Webb Hooper of Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. Research published by the American Psychological Association shows starting around the age 10, African American boys are less likely to be viewed as a harmless child. And many will think they are much older than they are, overestimating their age by 4.5 years.
So that a boy who's 13 years old could actually be viewed by others as an adult. And is more likely to be viewed as guilty, more likely to be thought of as a criminal, and if accused of a crime, more likely to be found guilty.
Hooper says the fact that Eric has to think of strategies to not be profiled by the police is one example of the extra layer of stress that African Americans have in the U.S. Some researchers call it the black tax.
And in Eric's case, he's thinking about this, and he's an adolescent and has this burden, this extra concern, which is an example of the chronic stress that African Americans experience. It's a daily stress. It doesn't ever go away.
This chronic activation of the stress system can lead to a number of medical conditions, says Hooper, including heart disease and hypertension. Researchers have also found race-related stress can result in anxiety, fear, self-blame, self-doubt, resentment, anger, and paranoia.
It's physically exhausting sometimes, and from a mental standpoint, it's a lot. It's just a lot for me right now. It's a lot to be dealing with, and it frustrates me so much when I stop to think, and it's like there are a whole set of people who just do not deal with these. They don't have these rules.
Eric, who says he's been stopped and questioned by police multiple times on his way home from school, also worries about his younger brother, William, that his innocence might be taken away for just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Dr. Hooper says it's important for people who are under this added stress to take active steps to keep it from spiraling into major physical and psychological health problems. She describes Eric's coping strategy of dyeing his afro blue as brilliant.
It is an example of a coping strategy. I would say that that's an active coping strategy. You're actively trying to solve the problem and put yourself in a situation where you are not in harm's way as an innocent person. I think it's unfortunate that that this young man had to develop such a creative method to deal with the problem, but it's much more effective than, for example, turning to smoking, turning to drinking, and actually becoming a stereotype.
Despite having to navigate through these difficult teen years, Eric says his outlook on life is still positive. Like many high school kids, he's worried about girls, looking forward to the prom, and trying to decide what college to attend next year.
You're watching the IdeaStream Be Well Network.
Funding for Be Well comes from the Dr. Donald J. Goodman and Ruth Weber Goodman Philanthropic Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, the Margaret Clark Morgan Foundation, the McGregor Foundation, St. Luke's Foundation, the Mount Sinai Healthcare Foundation, the Woodruff Foundation, and the Community Foundation of Lorain County.
Hold your right arm up to the count of 10.
From the emergency room to the operating table, our locally produced series Be Well helps you and your family better understand common diseases and life-saving technologies. Follow local patients through tragedy and triumph. See science simplified and treatments demystified. Learn what it takes to be well.
Did you know that heroin and other opioids literally hijack the reward system of the brain, sending surges of a chemical called dopamine into the brain like a bolt of lightning?
Heroin just short circuits that system and creates such a powerful response that it sort of fools the organism into thinking that, hey, this is more important than anything.
To find out more, visit bewell.ideastream.org.
This is the IdeaStream Be Well Network.
Hello, I'm Marlene Harris Taylor. Thanks for joining us here on IdeaStream's Be Well Network, your source for in-depth health news and information in Northeast Ohio. In our continuing series, Derailed by Stress, we also examine the role of chronic stress with police officers. Research shows that police are more likely to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, suicidal thoughts, and physical issues like heart attacks and high blood pressure. In our next story, IdeaStream's Lesha Bushak explores how the job of those sworn to protect and serve can impact their health.
13, Captain. So right now, we're getting called to a female that's not waking up on Pearl Avenue, which is, you know, usually this kind of is indicative of somebody in a overdose situation. So we'll see when we get there. You know.
For Richard Schiltz, being the first to respond to skyrocketing opioid overdoses in Lorain has added another layer of pressure to the already stressful job of being a police officer. Once he's on the scene, Schiltz does his best to comfort the woman who fortunately woke up on her own.
All that matters is that you're awake now, and I got to get you some medical help. Would you like to go get checked out? So you get the habitual people, like, you know, like they're destroying their lives, and they just keep doing it again and again and again. You know, that kind of wears on you sometimes.
In addition to the rising opioid epidemic, recent police shootings and heightened tensions with communities of color adds another layer of stress to the job. Gary Easter knows the feeling of fear that comes with police work all too well. Though he's retired now, he worked as a police officer in Lakewood for 20 years.
I think, as far as I'm concerned, going out there and getting out of the car and walking up to a person, you just don't know who you're walking up to and what's going through their mind and what's happened in their life. And they just may turn out and take it out on you as that officer representing the police department.
For Easter, stress from the job didn't only mean fear for his own life, but constant exhaustion from shift work and night duty, internal management pressures, and even the way he became conditioned to look at the world.
You have no idea when you walk up to somebody, you become very suspicious of everybody. And you don't know what's going through their mind. It's unfortunate, but that's the baggage that comes with the police department.
Studies show that all of this stress takes its toll. Police officers suffer from higher rates of high blood pressure and heart problems. According to a 2013 study in an emergency mental health journal, male police officers have a life expectancy of 21 years less than the general male population. For Gary Easter, the ripples of stress-related health effects were most apparent in his father, who was a Euclid police officer for 25 years.
I think when I watched him, my parents got divorced, and I think that was police-related. And also, he smoked, and I think that was due to the stress of the job, and eventually it killed him.
That's all the more reason why police officers need to develop healthy coping skills compared to smoking and drinking, says Robert Kaplan, a forensic and clinical psychologist who has worked closely with police.
An individual who is in this kind of work has to do more to manage stress in their life than the average individual. And if they don't, then they're much more subject to physical disease that begins to affect them. They begin to have stomach aches, back aches, headaches, hypertension, cardiac disease, heart attacks. I mean, these are the types of illnesses that are more commonly seen in emergency responders and police officers than you would see in the general population.
Kaplan notes that exercising, a healthy diet, and learning to recognize symptoms of severe stress or post-traumatic stress disorder and to seek help for them are some of the best ways to cope. Gary Easter agrees.
In my situation, I would eliminate the stress through exercise. I would exercise, I would try to run, or try to do some workout every day. If I didn't do that, I think I would have some serious problems. Again, the whole idea of being suspicious of people and coming home with that stress and coming home and being leery of other people would how do I say it, would really hurt it would really make for a pretty poor life.
Easter adds one of the best ways to combat the stress of always feeling suspicious is to spend time in the community, getting to know people and building trust. It's a lesson he learned as a community police officer working in schools. As for Richard Schultz, the end of a long 12-hour night shift in the cold may bring exhaustion, but his way of coping with the stress is simply trying to keep a positive and resilient attitude.
This is a career, and it's a great career. I love it. But you got to remember, too, that, just don't let the career consume you. And then, like, if you get into a situation with people that are, like, maybe they're verbally degrading you, because a lot of people just don't like the police, you just can't take it to heart. You just kind of brush it off. It's just part of your job, nature of the beast, and keep on going.
For more of Derailed by Stress, IdeaStream's Be Well series exploring the negative impact stress has on our health, visit us online at ideastream.org/stress. And of course, you can find all of IdeaStream's Be Well health news and information online as well at bewell.ideastream.org. Also, get the latest in health news and information for our community every month by signing up for IdeaStream's Be Well e-newsletter. Sign up online at ideastream.org/ehealthnews. At some point, most people will grieve over the loss of a loved one. Up to 10% of those who suffer such grief may also develop what's known as complicated grief or unresolved grief that can spiral into mental or physical health problems. In this next report from our Derailed by Stress series, Lesha Bushak explores the impact of complicated grief on the health of a local poet, as well as the ways people can overcome the stress of grief through tailored therapy.
You don't get there until you go through grief. Yeah. You got to go through it. You can't go over it. You can't hide it. You got to let grief hit you, go through it, and keep going. Mm-hmm.
Keisha Nicole Foster and her mom are reflecting on a long journey through grief. 6 years ago, Foster lost her son immediately after his birth when he was born prematurely.
This is all I had walking out of the hospital. So how weird is that? I walk in with a baby in my stomach that I know I'm supposed to deliver, and hours later, I walk out with this. How do you get through that? How does anybody really get through that?
Within a few months of losing her baby, Foster found herself spiraling into depression and anxiety.
She wouldn't go out, she wouldn't eat, and she's always a strong-willed young lady, but she was just mean, and she wouldn't bathe.
Foster was suffering from complicated grief, a severe form of grief that affects some 10 to 15% of people going through a loss. In recent years, researchers have discovered that if left untreated, complicated grief can result in serious health problems, like depression, anxiety, or an increase in suicidal thoughts. It may also increase the risk of heart problems and cancer, impair the immune system, and heighten inflammation. Foster found help at Cornerstone of Hope, a grief counseling center in Independence. Mark and Christy Tripodi founded the center after grieving themselves over the loss of their 3-year-old son in 2000. They say much of society isn't well equipped to handle grief.
We're just not aware enough on how to respond to people who go through grief and loss. We don't know how to handle it. In our corporations, in our schools, we think that after a couple days, everybody should go back to their lives and it should just be what it once was, and it's never that way. You're changed forever after the death of someone you love so much.
Foster started improving when she took part in a program specially designed for parents who lose infants. Specialized grief therapies have become the new way of thinking among mental health experts. Tailored therapies for complicated grief include helping patients to stop second-guessing themselves about things they could have done differently in regards to the death, as well as guiding them to re-engage with the world. Perhaps most importantly, it also involves learning how to accept the new reality of the loss.
You have to accept the reality whether or not you like the reality or not. And if you don't do that, then it automatically, or over time, certainly will cause some destruction or some patterns in your life that are destructive or debilitating in certain ways, because you have the pain inside of you, almost like a toxin inside of you that's kind of eating away at your health.
Therapy at Cornerstone was the first step for Foster, but her healing process really took off when she picked up her pen again, which allowed her to get her experience of grief out on paper and in the world.
Writing really just helped me get back to myself because that is my normal self, writing. I'm 36, so almost half of my life has been writing and performing. It chips away at happiness, deflates clean air. I understand the hot tears on a cold face, and if nothing else, I love you. It helps me because it allowed me to get back on stage. It allowed me to talk to people again, to kind of get my social skills back in order through my poetry. If I didn't take it back to the stage, if I didn't write these poems during that time. And also people identify with my poems because it showed me that other women go through this.
Today, Foster performs at many local venues, and she's healthy and happy. She's also pregnant again. She says her healing journey spurred her to grow into a better person, and has only words of hope for others who may face a similar obstacle.
The pain never goes away. You never forget that loved one. You never forget, but you do get stronger and you do get better after grief. If you go through grief properly, you allow yourself to be weak and then to get back strong, you do prevail. You come out victorious.
How has stress negatively affected your health? And what's the source of your stress? Is it your workplace, your home, financial troubles, or something else? Tell us your story at BeWellHealth@ideastream.org. For more of Derailed by Stress, visit us online at ideastream.org/stress. And of course, you can find all of IdeaStream's Be Well Health news and information online as well at bewell.ideastream.org.
This is the IdeaStream Be Well Network.
Did you know that? The most common form of acupuncture works by placing hair-thin needles into meridian points on the body. Some acupuncturists believe the needles can stimulate the body's natural painkillers and reduce inflammation. Some studies have shown the practice to help relieve low back, shoulder, and neck pain, as well as migraines. In light of the opioid epidemic, many patients are turning to acupuncture to treat pain.
IdeaStream applies its multiple media to health and science. Topics you've said are important through radio and television reports and a content-rich website. IdeaStream supports healthy people, healthy places, and a healthy future for our community. Interviewing the experts, revealing the research, helping you to be well. What matters most to you is on air, online, on IdeaStream.
I'm Marlene Harris Taylor. In some Northeast Ohio neighborhoods, obesity rates top 40%. In this next Be Well special, we'll explore the impact that place has on our ability to eat a proper diet and explore some local efforts to propel proper nourishment. It's part of our ongoing series, Healthy People, Healthy Places.
And if you don't eat healthy, you're going to die.
In some Northeast Ohio neighborhoods, obesity rates top 40%.
Where we see more obesity and more rates of chronic disease, we see less access to fresh and healthy foods.
From promoting produce to safeguarding water, cross the intersection of people, place, and health, and explore local efforts to propel proper nourishment. Next on Be Well, Healthy People, Healthy Places, Diet and Food. Be Well is a multiple media health information project presented by WVIZ PBS IdeaStream. Funding comes from the Dr. Donald J. Goodman and Ruth Weber Goodman Philanthropic Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, the Sisters of Charity Foundation of Cleveland, the Mount Sinai Healthcare Foundation, the McGregor Foundation, the Austin Memorial Foundation, the Dominion Foundation, the St. Luke's Foundation, and the Community Foundation of Lorain County.
Hello, I'm Rick Jackson. Welcome to a Be Well special on Healthy People, Healthy Places, with a focus on diet and food. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 3 adults in Ohio is obese. The cost of excess fat exacts a heavy toll. The Ohio Department of Health says we spend more than $50 billion a year on illnesses like diabetes and heart disease. These chronic diseases are fueled by obesity and poor dietary habits, as well as other unhealthy behaviors like smoking and sedentary lifestyles. Experts are especially worried about the growing number of children showing up with obesity-related diseases, which used to be found only in adults. Behind our fight against fat sits unhealthy dietary habits, propelled by a never-ending supply of sugar, fat, salt, and lots of bad carbs. Most experts agree the ingredients in junk food, as well as processed and packaged meals, are harming our brains, our bodies, even our unborn children.
If we continue like this, we are never going to solve the problem. And the non-solution of this problem, I think is the most significant threat to our future as a country. And a lot of the food that our pregnant mothers eat and the children eat shortly after their birth, in many cases is incredibly is toxic.
That being said, we're going to spend the next half hour exploring programs throughout Northeast Ohio to improve access to fresh and healthy foods, things that are not processed with chemicals and additives but come directly from the earth. Unfortunately, the lack of access to fresh food often goes hand in hand with poor health as well as poverty. For example, neighborhoods like Huff are hotspots for obesity as well as high blood pressure. But as we're about to see, a special program recently took root in Huff, designed to help patients with high blood pressure eat more fruits and vegetables.
I guess you would call Huff the Harlem of Cleveland. If you want to get a pulse of the African American community here in Cleveland, you definitely need to come to Huff.
36-year-old Jamel Rakira grew up in Huff. As a boy, he recalls making daily trips to the local corner store to buy junk food.
Quarter bags of chips, quarter bag Faygo Pops. Like I said, if it was sugar lace and sodium lace, we ate it.
But about 8 years ago, Rakira decided to bid farewell to processed and other unhealthy foods.
My health wasn't the best, so I started doing my research, talking to people, talking to a lot of my elders, and the one thing that they say what was missing and that contributed to optimal health was our diets.
Rakira began growing his own fruits and vegetables. What started as a small community garden morphed into a full-fledged urban farm, complete with 3 hoop houses that allow for growing all year round.
This is garlic, heirloom garlic that we planted last October. We'll actually be harvesting it in July.
During the season, Rakira's farm becomes a lush oasis and a gathering place for him to preach the benefits of a healthy diet. In the summer of 2015, Rakira's quest to promote healthy eating got him involved in a unique collaboration. It revolved around Mike Shrestha, who runs the pharmacy a few blocks away at the Huff Health Center, part of a network of clinics run by Northeast Ohio Neighborhood Health Services, also known as NEON. Shrestha became the cornerstone of a program at the Huff Center funded by a federal grant. It's designed to help patients with high blood pressure eat healthier in an effort to prevent complications like stroke. Cases Prevention Research Center helped run the pilot program at Huff and 2 other medical sites.
Huff was just an amazing clinic. First, that a pharmacist really wanted to be a part of this was just amazing, and recognized himself before we even did, his untapped potential to have an impact on his patients.
You're kind of like an activist pharmacist.
Well, I like to be one, try to help people when I can be helped. Something that you can prevent. I don't want to see them suffering if they can avoid it.
The project used what's called produce prescription programs, in which healthcare providers write out prescriptions, which are actually vouchers, patients can redeem at local farmers markets to get fresh fruits and vegetables at no cost. Shrestha recruited a total of 75 patients at Huff.
Yes, ma'am.
Herman Pearson was the first one to sign up. He's a part-time driver for a local senior day program. Pearson and other participants met monthly with Shrestha for educational sessions on diet and nutrition and to get their vouchers.
Now, I eat blueberries. I never ate this type of fruit before. I couldn't afford them, so I wouldn't buy them. Mike was telling me that will help with my blood pressure, Also, it has the antioxidants in it.
Shrestha helped take the project even one step further. Instead of asking participants to travel to a farmer's market, he helped bring a market to the Huff Clinic parking lot once a week.
It meant a lot that you can walk out of here, like if you had a doctor's appointment, you can walk out and go out and get vegetables.
And here's how the Huff Project really brought everything together. The clinic farmers market featured local growers like Jamel Rakira, creating a unique way to connect the neighborhood farm with the local medical clinic and patients who need to eat healthy.
How do you feel knowing that you're growing stuff here during the season and then you take it over to the medical center where people can get it that may not otherwise have access?
It makes me feel good, you know, just to know. And I tell people, I say your food, we go to the medical center and let them know what you're buying from me is grown, it's less than a quarter mile away.
According to the manager of the farmers market, the parking lot became a neighborhood event and a form of empowerment.
It's nice when there's a movement, and the movement is about becoming better with your health, your lifestyle.
Mike Shrestha says the project serves as a powerful example of how pharmacists can be used as health educators.
And I felt that I am in a role where I can help them with the medications on one hand and help them with the diet on the other hand and put them all together.
Researcher Erica Trappel says the project at Huff will continue for 2 more years. The plan is to expand to a total of 9 medical clinics and explore the possibility of having more farmers markets on site, just like what happened in Huff.
We got a new theme, it's called New Huff, you know, to where we're embracing health and wellness on so many different levels.
When it comes to his eating habits, Jamel Rakira has indeed come a long way from the neighborhood corner store where he feasted on junk food as a child. But for many Northeast Ohioans, the unhealthy choices at local corner stores are the norm. According to the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission, 1 in 4 county residents lives in an area known as a food desert, a neighborhood without access to fresh, healthy, and affordable food. In Cleveland, the problem is even more severe. More than half of the city's residents are so-called desert dwellers. Many people in such communities lack transportation to get to large grocery stores or supermarkets.
The bottom line is we need to begin to create conditions for kids, adults, residents, everybody to make healthy decisions. We can't just expect that because we tell people you should eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day that they're going to be able to go out and do that.
It's not so much that we don't want fresh food. Everybody wants fresh food. Everybody wants fresh onions, fresh potatoes. Who doesn't like tomatoes, green or red?
Richard Tracy Dobson has lived in Cleveland's Huff neighborhood most of his life. It lies on the edge of a food desert area, meaning many residents live more than half a mile away from a grocery store.
I would love a grocery store somewhere where you could just walk to. I would love to see something. You have all of these vacant lots, all of these abandoned buildings that could be used, that could be utilized, but it's not.
Erica Trappel is with CASE's Prevention Research Center. She says what's happening in neighborhoods like Dobson's is a hot topic for researchers analyzing how food influences health.
What we've been able to see is where we see more obesity and more rates of chronic disease, we see less access to fresh and healthy foods.
Nationwide and here in Cleveland, a wave of healthy food financing projects funded by private as well as federal, state, and local tax dollars are in the works. The hope, Trappel says, is that providing access to farmers markets, grocery stores, or even just fresh fruit and vegetables at corner stores will lead to healthier neighborhoods. But, Trappel and others say, they are now realizing that access is just the first step.
I think one of the most important things that we need to kind of step away from is this idea that if we build it, they will come. We know that that's not really always the case. Just because we put a grocery store in a neighborhood, we should not expect that automatically everyone is going to start shopping there and will change their diets.
Researcher Tamara Dubowitz at the Rand Corporation in Pittsburgh confirmed this by studying a low-income neighborhood before and after a grocery store opened. She says the biggest positive change among residents was not in what they ate. Instead, the biggest change was in perception. Once the grocery store opened, the people who lived nearby said they were more satisfied with their neighborhood. And while they didn't eat more whole grains and fresh fruits and vegetables, they did reduce their intake of empty calories. Those are things like sugary drinks and alcohol.
Just the knowledge alone that they deserved access to healthy options was something that was almost networked throughout the community as an increased sense of awareness for, well, we deserve more.
So imagine if residents had access to healthy food and began to eat the healthy foods. It's called food justice, and in Cleveland, the power of that theory is already being tested. The Tremont West Development Corp has installed fresh produce cooler cases in 4 corner stores and a bakery on Cleveland's near west side. At Caribe Bakery in the Clark Fulton neighborhood, customers are eager on a recent morning to eat plenty of yellow rice, chicken and pork, and fried dough.
It comes with the beans, so you want it? Yeah.
But that's not all. Judith Teseo, who helps run the bakery, says regulars have noticed the fresh food.
So now we even have people that says, can you cut a little bit of salad and add it to our plate? And we do that, you know. We're like, okay, if you want some salad, I'll go to the back, cut them a little bit of salad and fix them a little bowl.
So we asked her if she thought selling fresh fruits and vegetables was helping the neighborhood.
I think we are. I mean, we're never that conscious that we should be eating more fresh fruits and vegetables. And ever since they started selling it over here, I started eating more fruits and vegetables. And it's even been helping me because I've been losing weight.
Researchers at the Prevention Research Center say they want more stories like Teseo's. They are in the early stages of trying to figure out how to track and evaluate Cleveland's food projects and to show why it's beneficial to bring fresh food to neighborhoods like this one.
Next, we turn our attention to children and to why it's crucial to help them learn healthy eating habits early in life. But first, we invite you to visit our website. At bewell.ideastream.org, you can find a variety of community resources. Just click on Be Well Resources under the Topics sidebar. There, you'll find tools and information that may help. Maybe you're looking for a map of food desert regions in your community, or you want the location of area farmers markets and some healthy recipe ideas. We've got everything in one place to help guide you and your family. Find it all at bewell.ideastream.org. When it comes to childhood obesity, there are more frightening statistics to share. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 28% of low-income preschoolers in Ohio are overweight or obese. While other states showed a drop in preschool obesity rates in 2011, Ohio was not among them. Children as young as 12 are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and other obesity-related problems such as fatty liver disease, conditions which literally put them at risk for losing function of some of the body's vital organs.
This is the first generation of kids that are expected to live shorter lives than their parents currently do.
The real problem is what we are feeding our mothers and our children. Many of our kids do not even experience once in their lifetime a cooked meal. They always use, prepackaged.
If you have a single mother and she's working full time and she has to get the kids prepared, that's 10, 12 hours a day if she's doing it by herself. And you have a high contingency of single mothers within this community. So a lot of times it may not be that she doesn't want to do it, but it may not, it may be a thing of convenience.
This is more conceptual, right?
Throughout our region, efforts are underway to teach children the importance of healthy eating. One local mother is making a lot happen close to her own backyard.
I just want you guys just to lay it in there, a thin layer over the beds.
Okay. Here, pull that one out there, Bill.
Erica Acey considers herself a champion for healthy eating. A lot of her effort centers around the community garden she and her family helped start.
Yeah, we're putting the beds to rest right now and covering up with hay. So we try to put this protective layer on so that the elements don't destroy what we worked so hard to build.
It keeps the weeds from growing throughout the season. So when we come back in the spring and get started again, it'll be just dirt.
When Acey and her husband married in 2013, they became a blended family beyond the Brady Bunch. Between the two, they have 9 children.
Fill up the bags with the greens, okay?
Growing vegetables definitely helps the family food budget. Besides being practical, Acey wants the garden to be educational.
When we teach our lessons on gardening and composting, you know, I wanted to make it that educational, that classroom setting, so we could really feel like, you know, they can understand that they're learning.
So one thing about this garden, it brings everyone together. It allows not only the children, but myself, my wife, and other adults who are in the community to come out and be a part of something bigger than themselves.
The garden lies across the street from the AC's home, located in the historic district of Cleveland's Glenville neighborhood. AC started the garden in 2015. It's one of 200 community gardens in Cleveland's Summer Sprout program, a partnership between the city and the Ohio State University Extension. Summer Sprout helps participants secure land, as well as supplies and training.
Yeah, you could put it in a bucket.
AC sees community gardening as key to improving access to healthy food, especially for those living in poverty. But AC admits getting buy-in from her kids to eat healthy can be tough.
I told them, hey, I need to make sure that when y'all here, I know you're eating healthy. So when you go out there in the world, they pick up you a burger from McDonald's, or, you know, you go over a friend's house and they're eating this or that, you know, you can get a little balance.
How do you think eating this kind of stuff is gonna help you?
Because it's gonna help your system get better without eating all the candy and sugar.
Yeah, you could take him to Nasir so he can rinse them off. So we could.
AC wants her passion for healthy eating to sink in, with hopes that her kids become future warriors in the fight against Cleveland food deserts and the obesity epidemic.
Yes, I need them to spread the word so that it can be in their hearts, their minds, their body, their souls. So like I said, once they get older, this can be something that they do and show their children.
There's one thing we all need no matter where we live: access to clean, safe water. Concerns about our region's drinking water surfaced at a neighborhood meeting in University Circle, moderated by IdeaStream's Civic Commons.
The pipes, for one thing, because you know it still has lead in it, and it has different it has different toxins and things in the water and in the pipes. And so then from time to time, it gets that skim on it, and it smells.
The pipes that the water come through, how long have they been in the ground? And they're corroded and they're rusty. Like, turn the water on any pipes first thing in the morning, and what does the water look like?
I too do not drink water, nor do I want my family, although my husband does whatever he wants to. I won't let our 5-year-old son drink water out of the tap.
Now we explore what it takes to keep our tap water safe, tracking its path from the shores of Lake Erie to the pipes in older homes that populate so much of our region.
A water crisis in Flint, Michigan captured national attention.
The city of Flint, in its emergency declaration, is asking for more than $35 million to replace these.
And then Northeast Ohio residents saw a similar scenario play out right in their own backyard.
I was cooking with the water, bathing in the water. I bathed her in the water when she was born, so it was kind of scary.
Taylor Bailey was still pregnant when lead-contaminated water was first discovered in Sebring, Ohio in August. The village near Youngstown failed to notify residents of possible water contamination for months. So what's being done to make sure the water we're drinking is safe? And at what point can things go awry? We contacted Cleveland's water treatment plant, but our request for a visit was turned down. So instead, we went to the water filtration plant in Avon Lake.
It goes through several steps of the process to go from Lake Erie water to drinking water. And during the wintertime, it takes about 6 hours to do that. In the summertime, it's about 3 hours. So you wouldn't drink Lake Erie water. I wouldn't drink Lake Erie water, but I would certainly drink what comes out of our tap.
Todd Danielson oversees Avon Lake Regional Water, which serves 200,000 residents in Avon Lake and surrounding suburbs.
We take the water in from the lake. We have to add chemicals to help remove the sediments and other materials in the water, and then we filter all of that out. And then we add things like chlorine to disinfect the water. Lake Erie can go from calm to a monster in just a matter of hours. And as that water quality changes, we have to change the treatment process so that we can keep providing clean water.
Changing the treatment process centers around the pH balance of water to make sure it's not too acidic. When acidic water is too high and it hits old piping in homes, it corrodes the pipe, so lead leaks into the water. This is the central pathway for lead exposure.
When you go through the water treatment process, the chemicals that we add to get rid of the dirt lower the pH. So we need to raise the pH before it goes back out to the homes. And we raise the pH with something called lime. And what that does is it basically causes a coating of hardness on the inside of our pipes, either in our distribution system or in the homes. It's this balancing effect where you need to minimize all of the bad things while maximizing the benefits of water.
Avon Lake adds lime, while Cleveland's water treatment plant adds a chemical called orthophosphate. Either way, the result is the same. It causes a coating in the pipes so water that might be slightly acidic doesn't leach metals from old lead or copper pipes leading into homes.
So pH can affect corrosion, and corrosion could cause lead leaching out in pipes. Essentially what you're doing is you're trying to reduce the metals interaction with the water.
The lead and copper rule established by the Environmental Protection Agency requires water utilities to monitor drinking water at customer taps and take measures including notifying residents of lead levels exceeding 15 parts per billion, in addition to taking action to control corrosion. That's where Flint and Sebring failed. For Northeast Ohio residents living in older homes, Danielson offers some tips.
If you turn on the water until it gets colder, then you know you've flushed the water out of your pipes in your house. Flushing the toilet, taking a shower, collecting the water to water plants, washing dishes. So long as you are getting rid of the water that's been stagnant for a long period. That's the easiest thing to do.
Filters that attach to your tap can also be used, but they should be changed regularly. If you're concerned about lead in your drinking water, you can call your local water supplier. If you want to test your water yourself, your supplier may come out and do it for free. If that's not an option, you can get a testing kit from a home improvement store. If you do that, make sure to use the very first water to come out of your pipes after sitting overnight. You can also find local contact information for testing your water for lead by calling the EPA's Safe Drinking Water Hotline.
Utilities have done such a good job over such a long time that people don't think about turning on their tap and providing, having clean, safe water available. But that takes an investment. Many of the distribution system pipes could be 50, 80, 100 years old, and they need to be replaced. So it's a value proposition. What is the value of having clean, safe water at your house?
The value of clean, safe drinking water is measured by what happens when such access is denied. People get sick from bad water. In some cases, children get lead poisoning. The lack of access to healthy food also produces disturbing results. If current obesity trends in Ohio continue, 1 out of every 3 children born since 2000 will likely develop diabetes. By 2023, chronic diseases in the Buckeye State could cost taxpayers as much as $152 billion. Over the last half hour, we hope we've shared some motivating stories and valuable facts about the importance of diet and food. This is one of many topics we're covering in our Healthy People, Healthy Places series that explores the intersection of people, place, and health. For IdeaStream, I'm Rick Jackson. Thanks for watching. And here's one last reminder, visit our website. For more tips and resources on healthy living and to learn more about topics discussed in today's program, visit bewell.ideastream.org and click on Be Well Resources under the Topics sidebar. There, you'll find helpful links to community resources, from making sure your family has safe drinking water to tips for starting a community garden. Find it all in one place at bewell.ideastream.org.
You're watching the IdeaStream Be Well Network, your source for in-depth health news and information in Northeast Ohio.
Go to health.ideastream.org to visit the Be Well website. You'll find information, links, videos, and radio stories, all designed to help you better understand obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Find out how you and your family can take advantage of free health screenings at area hospitals. And view special content provided by our partner, Net Wellness, a consumer health website from Case Western Reserve University, The Ohio State University, and the University of Cincinnati. Visit health.ideastream.org and be well.
I'm Marlene Harris-Taylor, and this is the IdeaStream Be Well Network, your source for in-depth health news and information in Northeast Ohio. For a list of regional, statewide, and national resources related to diet and food, visit us online at ideastream.org/diet and food links. And for more of IdeaStream's coverage of diet and food issues, visit ideastream.org/diet and food. Cancer is a major health concern for everyone, but across the country and here in Northeast Ohio, cancer hits especially hard in the Black community. In fact, among the 4 most diagnosed cancers in the country, African Americans in Cuyahoga County have higher death rates than whites. The causes of this health disparity are complex. Stay with us over the next half hour as we examine the array of social and biological factors impacting cancer in the African American community right here in Northeast Ohio.
Hello, I'm Kay Colby, and welcome to a Be Well special on African Americans and cancer. Across the country and here in Northeast Ohio, cancer hits especially hard in the Black community. In fact, among the 4 most diagnosed cancers in the country, African Americans in Cuyahoga County have higher death rates than whites. The causes of health disparities are complex. There are problems with the system of healthcare delivery itself. Disparity researchers cite a lack of culturally appropriate care as one noted barrier. Issues such as fear and mistrust of the medical system prevent some African Americans from seeking and receiving the care they need. African Americans also have higher rates of poverty. Those who are poor face many obstacles in daily life that may keep them from following through with recommended treatments. The rate of obesity is also higher in the Black community, and excess fat is a known risk factor for certain cancers and can make treatment more difficult. Finally, biology also comes into play. Researchers have discovered genetic differences in certain tumor types among African Americans, which may make some cancers more aggressive. For the next half hour, we're going to explore this complex array of social and biological factors through the experiences of local people. We begin with breast cancer.
Look for the picture. Use the words from the box to write about the picture.
34-year-old Dallas Walker is a proud mother and wife who lives on the edge of Cleveland's Collinwood neighborhood. She's also a breast cancer patient who knows what it's like to navigate treatment in the face of adversity. Over the past year, the family has said lots of prayers and cried lots of tears.
It's emotional for everybody, but all we can do is try to stay alive and fight for our lives.
In January 2015, Walker and her then fiancé, also named Dallas, both had decent jobs. Still, the couple was barely scraping by, and Walker was without health insurance. It was then she discovered a large mass in her left breast.
Yeah, I was like, Dallas, feel this? And he felt it, and he just started crying.
That feeling of helplessness is something that it's hard to accept, but you have to, because it's in the hands of the Lord and of the doctors.
Walker did what many people without health insurance do. She went to a local emergency room to have the mass examined. There she was referred to a surgeon who scheduled her directly for a mastectomy. That, it turns out, was not the best course of action. Walker's tumor was what's called locally advanced, and it was a subtype that responds well to a combination of chemotherapy and 2 targeted therapy agents given before surgery.
With the type of breast cancer that Dallas had, which is HER2 positive, we have some new treatments that definitely seem to improve outcomes if we do them before surgery.
Walker says the surgeon she saw after her ER visit never discussed preoperative treatment.
If I had known, if I had knowledge, of different or the procedures, that should be, then I could have said no.
This is really a case where it wasn't navigated right off the bat.
Yeah, I can see where you would say that, and yes and no, because we were able to get involved in a timely manner. But right, she walked into an emergency room and was referred to the doctor, and it wasn't the right process.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
How you been feeling?
Bad.
Fortunately, 1 week before her scheduled surgery, an astute nurse practitioner came across Walker's case and connected her with specialists at the UH Seidman Cancer Center, where she received the right regimen of preoperative drugs to shrink the cancer, which surgeons then successfully removed. But Walker worries about other women who may not be as lucky.
I worry that they get shuffled in the system, and especially if they're not aware.
Cleveland's large cancer centers have social workers or navigators who help underserved women understand and maneuver through the complex system of cancer care. But at the emergency room, Dallas Walker was not connected with one. Given the high rate of uninsured minority women in Cuyahoga County, the disconnect between cancer navigation services and some community ERs may be one of many factors affecting breast cancer disparities in Northeast Ohio. The National Cancer Institute cites lack of insurance and unequal access to improvements in cancer treatment as issues that might contribute to the fact Black women die more from breast cancer than white women. 2013 data from the Cuyahoga County Board of Health shows Black women in Cuyahoga County die more from breast cancer than white women at a rate that exceeds the national average. A 2015 report by the local Komen Foundation highlights many troubling issues in Cuyahoga County.
In Cuyahoga County, we have a plethora of world-renowned healthcare institutions located in the very backyards of the neighborhoods where individuals are dying the most often from breast cancer. So for one reason or another, individuals either aren't accessing the care or they're coming to access the care too late.
For some African American women, tumor type may impact survival.
They are more likely, for instance, to get the most aggressive form of breast cancer, which is triple-negative breast cancer.
Researchers aren't sure why African American women get more triple-negative breast cancer. What they do know is that triple-negative tumors are harder to treat. Social factors also play a big role in disparities. In Cuyahoga County, African American and Hispanic women are 2 to 3 times as likely to live in poverty. For women living in poverty, daily life issues often get in the way of adhering to cancer treatment.
And you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're going to have to prioritize either taking time off of work or getting the care that you need. And more often than not, they're going to delay care to put food on the table and keep a roof over their head.
It is the socioeconomic status, it is the neighborhood you live in, it is the stressors in your life, and all of these are a combination of biologic and social determinants of health, and I think they of course play a role in how poorly some groups of women do with cancer outcomes.
Dallas Walker has faced lots of stress during her cancer journey. Both she and her husband had to quit work. They had a car repossessed and had to move twice, the last time facing eviction.
You got moving and financial stress. It's a lot going on.
It's as much as it is, watching how hard my wife fights makes it easy for me not to complain.
It's one thing if it's just me and Dallas, but we have the kids, and at one point I thought we were gonna have to go into a shelter.
When you just got really attached to the house, you gotta move. It's just messed up.
Walker wants other African American women to know the importance of seeking a second opinion at a specialized cancer center. And her husband says, don't be ashamed to ask for help.
Stay strong. Don't give up. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Speak up and, fight for your life. It's your life that we're dealing with, and if you want to live, you got to fight for it. You don't have to be scared to get treatment. There's going to be pain, there's going to be some suffering, but if you want to live, then it's all worth it.
Researchers for the Komen Report say the navigation problems women face when they show up in the ER with breast cancer is one of many issues they plan to address with a new task force slated to begin work in early 2016. If you or a loved one is facing cancer and wondering how to get help, our health team has compiled a list of links and resources in Northeast Ohio, all available online. It's easy to find, and here's how.
You can find community resources on our website at bewell.ideastream.org. Type in Cancer Resources in the search box. There you'll find tools and information that may help. Maybe you're looking for a support or mentoring group. Or you want more information on cancer screening locations. Or even tips on handling the financial burden of cancer care. We've got everything in one place to help guide you and your family. Find it all at bewell.ideastream.org and search for Cancer Resources.
We heard about how Black women in the U.S. have higher death rates from breast cancer than white women. Another cancer where health outcomes differ for minority women is cervical cancer. The medical field has made great strides in cervical cancer, and it's now considered one of the most preventable cancers out there. Yet women of some minority groups continue to shoulder a greater burden of this disease. In our next story, producer Lauren Wilson delves into this health disparity and why it exists.
63-year-old Deborah Harden was diagnosed with late-stage cervical cancer in 2010. She's one of nearly 12,000 women who get cervical cancer each year.
I remember not crying or anything, just trying to digest the information.
Cervical cancer is highly preventable with regular screening and follow-up care. Cancers caught early can be cured. The overall death rate from cervical cancer has dropped more than half over the last 30 years, but progress hasn't been as swift among women in some minority groups.
We know that the Hispanic woman has the highest incident rate of cervical cancer, but the African American woman has the highest mortality rate, death rate from the disease, and that shouldn't be.
Before Deborah Harden's cervical cancer diagnosis, she hadn't had a pelvic exam in nearly 10 years.
I had no friends who had cervical cancer. Also, that's not necessarily a conversation that you have with just anybody. I had a fear of not being able to be there for my loved ones. And then there were the finances where to say, you know, my finances aren't in great shape. It's not, you know, I don't have this insurance. So it keeps you away. And you put it off, you delay it, you do other things.
Harden's life pre-cancer was packed with doing other things for other people as a full-time mom and caregiver.
I have 2 sons. I have 3 grandsons. I'm a homemaker. My grandson became a part of my life when he was 6 months old. But also I had taken care of my mother and father in their elderly years. And that added another element of someone else to take care of. Being this caretaker for my parents, for my grandson. No one's nudging you because you're taking care of them. So you appear well.
The women in Cleveland, sometimes they're just trying to survive. They're trying to put food on the table or decide where their next, their meal is coming from. There's a lot of childcare issues.
Like many health disparities, there's not just one problem. There are many factors that contribute to it, and often they overlap. One major factor in cervical cancer is screening. And it's not just the initial examination, but rather it's the follow-up where women are being lost.
When we actually look at uptake of screening, there almost is no difference when you compare certain populations. Higher socioeconomic status, lower socioeconomic status. Where we begin to lose patients is actually in the follow-up, especially when the follow-up requires specialized care.
Jerry Blair works with minority women with cancer and knows the barriers they face in getting care, including cost.
A lot of times, if they receive a screening that is free and there's no insurance, that will stop them because of the cost. I mean, so that just to have a biopsy is very expensive because you have to pay the doctor, the anesthesiologist, and the hospital.
You may not do anything until the crisis hits. Then that's when it's right in your face.
And that's exactly what happened. Hardin found out about her cancer diagnosis in the emergency room.
I had pretty much hemorrhaging. I knew whatever was going on was serious because I was bleeding. By morning, they were able to say, you have cervical cancer.
As needed. Deborah was not unlike a lot of patients we see in that there are a large number of women out there who really haven't seen a gynecologist since they had their last baby.
Experts agree that access to quality health care is paramount to reducing this health disparity. But Jerry Blair says from her experience, some doctors don't treat all patients the same.
You get a person who does not have insurance. The doctor would tell them as much as he thinks they should hear and not answer all the questions that they ask.
Those in the field say we're making progress on reducing the myriad of barriers to the care and prevention of cervical cancer among minority women, but it's still not good enough.
So we know that within the Hispanic female population, as well as the African American female population, we're doing a better job, but it's still not quite there.
I just think that ability to train more providers, maybe that are culturally sensitive to everyone's needs, and also providing education from the ground up.
Women need to connect with each other. Women need to support each other.
We as a people, as women, must be a partner with the physician for our health care. You have to be assertive and be the advocate for your own self.
Oh, I'm happy to do that. We can take care of that today, actually.
Cervical cancer is one of the few cancers where there's a vaccine available to prevent it. Yet many people aren't getting it. With me now to talk through this is Dr. Jason Knight, a gynecologic oncologist with the Cleveland Clinic. Welcome, Dr. Knight.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. So I understand this vaccine is designed to protect against certain strains of the human papillomavirus, or HPV. What exactly is the virus and how is it related to cancer?
HPV is a sexually transmitted disease which is responsible for almost all cases of cervical cancer. In addition, it's responsible for most cases of anal, rectal, head, and neck cancers. As I said, it's a sexually transmitted disease that is most frequently encountered by people in their young adult years.
So who should get the vaccine and when? What's the schedule for the shots?
Vaccination is recommended for both boys and girls, boys between the ages of 9 and 21, and girls between the ages of 9 and 26. The vaccine is given as 3 doses, just like a shot, for the flu or any other vaccine, and those 3 doses must be given over a 6-month period.
So according to some 2014 CDC data, in Ohio, only 60 to 69% of girls have had at least one HPV shot and only 30 to 39% of boys. What's behind the low rates?
There are a lot of factors that contribute to the low vaccination rates in the United States, but the way I think about it is that the age group is between 9 and 26.
So it's a little touchy to talk about sexually transmitted viruses at that age?
Absolutely.
Parents?
Some of these people are children under the care of parents, and some of the barriers that parents have are, how do I actually get time off from work to get my child vaccinated, and is this right for my child at all? Other patients are 26 years old. They're young adults, they have very active lifestyles, and they don't feel ill, so they often don't come in to see doctors for preventive care.
And I've heard some providers say, you know, maybe we need to reframe the message so it's not the sex shot, but it's the cancer prevention tool. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. Cervical cancer is a preventable disease. HPV vaccination can essentially eliminate not only cervical cancer, but many anal, rectal, head, and neck cancers, which affect both men and women.
So it's really important. And I know in late summer, a group from the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center organized a vaccination clinic with the Cleveland Public Schools. They had parents there. They got 30 kids vaccinated. What do you think has to happen to get more of that going on?
I think the more we can bring the vaccine to the community, the more barriers to vaccination we can overcome. Increasing our ability to meet community members in their own context depends on providers getting outside of their four walls and creating effective dialogue with community leaders, parents, social groups, and making sure that not only do we bring appropriate information to the community, but more importantly, that we build trust.
Meeting people where they are.
Absolutely.
Dr. Jason Knight, thanks for coming in and joining us on this.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You're tuned to a Be Well special on African Americans and cancer. Thanks for joining us. Our next piece dives into cancer biology. Colon cancer occurs more frequently in African Americans than in any other racial or ethnic group in the U.S., according to the American Cancer Society. They also die more from the disease. In early 2015, researchers at the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center made a significant discovery that may be an important first step in developing new ways to help combat this health disparity. Here's more on the research and what it could mean in the future.
Still doing okay with medication, right?
Yes.
57-year-old Diane Evans knows the full wrath of colon cancer. Evans is currently receiving chemotherapy for stage 4 colon cancer, and she lost her mother to the same disease.
She was 80 years old. She didn't go to the doctor. She didn't get screened. So what happened, it just, took over her entire body, organs. And by the time they caught it, they couldn't do anything.
African Americans have both a higher incidence and death rate from colon cancer than white Americans. While the causes of this and other health disparities are complex, researchers at the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center have made an important discovery pointing to the role biology may play.
This discovery proved that a large number of the colon cancers occurring in African Americans are inherently different than cancers occurring in white Americans.
From a biological standpoint?
From a biological standpoint, from the very basis of cancer, which are the gene mutations that drive cancer.
So that bumpy part lifted up is the whole tumor?
This is the entire tumor right here.
Researchers began their study by gathering samples from patient tumors removed during surgery. In a series of complex steps, they turned the specimens into liquid DNA for analysis. DNA is the instruction code that tells cells what to do. Scientists wanted to find out if there was a difference in the DNA of the tumors from the African American patients and those from the white patients. They found a group of common mutations in over 40% of the DNA of tumors from African Americans, which were much less common in the tumors from white patients. A few of the mutations were found exclusively in the African American tumors. Dr. Joseph Willis was in charge of collecting and prepping all the tumor specimens.
So this is what's called a biorepository, right?
Yes.
And all these little boxes are full of tumor samples from the last 20 years?
That's right. And we used virtually all these samples for our recent discovery. Some of these samples we've had frozen for about 10 to 20 years. And that way then the DNA is preserved so that even though the samples are old, you can in actual fact still use them for sophisticated experiments.
To do the DNA analysis, researchers relied on lots of sophisticated equipment, including a robot named Tiffany.
Tiffany helps us carry out the high labor-intensive steps. In some steps, we have to do a lot of extensive washes, and we do cleanups where we have the DNA attached to beads and wash it excessively, and that's quite time-consuming. And so we have the robot carry that out.
One benefit of identifying the common mutations in the African American tumors is that if researchers know what's happening at the molecular level with these cancers, they may one day be able to design drugs to target and disrupt the molecular processes driving the cancer. Another focus of future research will be to figure out why such mutations occur. Do they stem from diet or other lifestyle factors that can change the DNA of cells over time? Or are they related to age or certain inherited traits people are born with? But the first step, something the CASE team is now actively working on, is to determine the significance of the recent discovery.
To identify whether or not these mutations are the cause for aggressive colon cancers in African American patients.
And it could be part of the piece of the puzzle for the glaring disparity in death rates.
Yes, we think it very well might be.
Experts agree biology may be just one factor impacting the difference in survival rates between Black and white patients. Access to high-quality, culturally appropriate health care is paramount for all patients.
I'm just going to take a look under here in your eyes.
Early detection is another factor driving the disparity. According to the American Cancer Society, African Americans get diagnosed with more advanced colon cancers than white patients. And while there's a push to increase colon cancer screening for all populations, African Americans have a lower rate of screening than white Americans. Studies show screening for colon cancer is one of the most justifiable screening methods in terms of saving lives. Diane Evans wants people to get the screening message loud and clear.
Don't be afraid of getting screened. It is, you know, you go through a lot, you have to see doctors, you have to get tests, but it can save your life. If I had gone sooner, then I maybe would have been stage 1 or 2, and it would have been a different story for me.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you.
As she begins another 3.5-hour chemotherapy treatment, Evans reflects on the hope science holds for patients of the future.
This cancer is, you know, is outrageous. So any research dealing with that to help save lives, it's very important.
Researchers continue to investigate why colon cancer is more aggressive in African Americans and why Black men and women have higher death rates from the disease. Over the last half hour, we've explored how and why cancer impacts African Americans more so than Caucasians. While strides have been made in reducing these glaring health disparities, there's much more work to be done, especially right here in Northeast Ohio. I'm Kay Colby. Thanks for joining us. And remember, if you would like to find out more about health disparities, check out our resources online. Here's how.
For more information on how cancer affects the African American community, visit our website, bewell.ideastream.org, and type Cancer Resources in the search box. There you'll find links with answers to common questions and information on topics you've heard about today. On our website, you can also watch an in-depth interview with the director of the National Cancer Institute discussing cancer disparities. Find it all at bewell.ideastream.org. You're watching the IdeaStream Be Well Network, your source for in-depth health news and information in Northeast Ohio.
I'm Marlene Harris-Taylor. For more on IdeaStream's cancer coverage, including more about new cancer therapies and the financial effects of dealing with cancer and understanding clinical trials, visit us at ideastream.org/cancer. And you can find all of IdeaStream's Be Well health coverage online as well at bewell.ideastream.org.
Did you know that a new shot is being used to battle opioid addiction? It's called Vivitrol. It works on opioid receptors in the brain, totally blocking the ability of heroin and pain pills to lock on and produce a high. Many patients receive these shots at treatment facilities, but experts say more research is needed on Vivitrol, and it should be combined with counseling and a 12-step program to help addicts stay clean.
Hold your right arm up to the count of 10.
From the emergency room to the operating table, our locally produced series Be Well helps you and your family better understand common diseases and life-saving technologies. Follow local patients through tragedy and triumph. See science simplified and treatments demystified. Learn what it takes to be well. You're watching the IdeaStream Be Well Network, your source for in-depth health news and information in Northeast Ohio.
Nobody wants to get a diagnosis of cancer, especially pancreatic cancer, which many people die from in the first year. Cleveland resident Mary Hill, however, is beating the odds. As part of our series Navigating Cancer, I followed Hill's journey and the emotional roller coaster faced by other cancer survivors. Mary Hill's pancreatic cancer is in remission, but she can never fully put it behind her. Every quarter, she undergoes tests to monitor potential cancer sites in her body, and she's forced to relive the fear similar to when she was first diagnosed.
It's a different kind of feeling. It's a fear, but it's what we call scanxiety. Every time it's time for the scan, you get anxious.
Hill says it's the worst time for cancer survivors. For her, the anxiousness creeps in about 2 weeks before the scheduled tests. She can't sleep, and she's on edge. It's also hard on her son, who has his own scanxiety.
On one side, you were so happy that that whole ugly part of cancer and the treatments is over with. But on the other side, you're thinking we could so easily be right back there again. How do I guard myself to make sure, she's okay, I'm okay? So it's almost like you want to celebrate, but at the same time, you're cautious about it.
Hill and her 34-year-old son, Austin Taylor, are very close. He is her primary caregiver and moved in to take care of her after she had to undergo a very difficult surgery called the Whipple. 40% of her pancreas, part of her stomach and small intestine, and a third of her colon were taken out to remove the tumor in September of 2015. The operation also rerouted her stomach, which now empties into a different part of her colon.
I have a problem with digesting fat and also digesting sugar. But that doesn't stop me from eating candy.
Alligator. How much are they? 60 cents each. Well, you're not going to have to get two. Okay.
Sometimes it'll go straight through you, but it's worth it.
It's a tough surgery and recovery, but her doctor says Hill is very lucky. Most patients with pancreatic cancer don't display symptoms until the disease is in late stages. Some 40 to 60% are too advanced to diagnosis and can't have the operation.
Unfortunately, our success rate at curing people is relatively small. That's despite aggressive surgery, chemotherapy. We're enthusiastic when we meet someone like Mary who can be operated on, because at least they have that chance to be cured.
The first 2 years are critical. Statistically, the majority of people who have cancer, it comes back during that time period. Dr. Saltzman believes part of the reason Mary is beating the odds is the emotional and supportive care she's receiving from her son.
When I was in the hospital during, right after my operation, and I didn't think I was going to make it. I told him I was tired. I didn't think I was going to make it. And what he said to me was, "Mom, I got you. I got you."
As a child, the parents always way up here and you're down here. But we had a chance to really come together, meeting of the minds, and just trying to talk about everyday things, real life. It made our bond so much stronger. We get up in the morning, we laugh, we joke. We have a good time.
Hill says she feels guilty, though, because Taylor is her only child. He was also the primary caregiver for his father, who died from cancer 5 years ago. And now he's in the same position, taking care of his mother. She calls him her son dad, because in some ways their roles have reversed.
I really enjoy telling her to go to bed. Oh, I love it. Even to this day, I love it.
They are both finding ways to get through this challenging period of living cancer-free and never knowing when the other shoe is going to drop, by getting support from their spiritual counselor at university hospitals and through support organizations like the Gathering Place in Beechwood.
It's about trying to adjust to the new normal. Sometimes when people walk through the door of the Gathering Place and they're going through treatment, they say, "Oh, I can't wait for this to be done so I can get back to my old life or get back to life the way it used to be." And what they soon realize is that life is going to be very different than the way it used to be. They look at things differently. Their body changes. There's fatigue that they're dealing with. There's still some side effects, sometimes long-term side effects from treatment that they're trying to adjust to.
As Hill prepares to meet with Dr. Saltzman to discuss the results of her CT scan taken recently, she will find out if her cancer is still under control. Her scanxiety, though still very high, is a little better this time than it was in January. She suggests perhaps she's slowly adjusting to her new normal.
I think you're still in remission, and more importantly, you're doing well.
Anxious for an update, her son calls and interrupts the appointment.
Yep, that's him. Austin, I'm gonna have to call you right back.
But as soon as the appointment wraps up, Hill can't wait to share the news with her son, who just started a new full-time job and couldn't come with her.
I think you were more stressed out this time than I was.
For the time being, Hill will try to return to her normal life, and her son will try to do the same. Her next scan is scheduled for June. Then it will be time for more scanxiety. For more of our Be Well series, Navigating Cancer, visit us online at ideastream.org/navigatingcancer. Find all of IdeaStream's multiple media coverage of cancer issues at ideastream.org/cancer. And get the latest in health news and information for Northeast Ohio every month in IdeaStream's Be Well e-newsletter. Sign up online at ideastream.org/ehealthnews. Like Mary Hill, Northeast Ohioan Gerald Lyman is also beating the odds. Lyman was given a new lease on life when a new immunotherapy drug dissolved the tumor in his bladder. Now researchers are focusing on cases like his to improve cancer treatments for other patients. IdeaStream's Lesha Bushak has the story.
If in fact you're short of breath, then you're going to tell me about it.
Okay.
Right?
Gerald Lyman is speaking with his oncologist, Dr. Dale Shepard, during his cancer treatment that happens every 3 weeks at the Cleveland Clinic. Back in 2013, Lyman was diagnosed with stage 4 bladder cancer with little chance of survival. When chemotherapy and experimental drugs didn't work, he opted to try another clinical trial for a medicine designed to harness his immune system to fight the cancer, a new category of treatment known as immunotherapy. According to Dr. Shepard, Lyman was one of the first patients to try a new drug to treat the tumor that engulfed his bladder. And after about a month of treatment, he presented a big surprise.
He comes in and he says, I think this is working. I think I'm peeing out my tumor. I'm like, really? And he proceeds to pull out a Ziploc bag with little strands of tissue. And so I, of course, sent it to pathology, and sure enough, it was his tumor. That was after about a month of therapy. So pretty impressive. It just dissolved the tumor.
Lyman is what's known as an exceptional responder, a patient who experiences a powerful response to a new cancer treatment while most other patients in the trial don't. Part of Dr. Shepard's job is to explain to patients who want to volunteer for experimental treatments with new immunotherapy drugs that there is no guarantee they'll work for them.
One of the interesting things with this particular class of compounds in these drugs is that they don't work in everyone, and we don't know why.
But finding out why they do work on certain patients is the goal behind the Exceptional Responders Initiative at the National Cancer Institute. A 2014 study that focused on an exceptional responder with bladder cancer discovered 2 genetic mutations that may have played a role in their powerful response. Now, researchers are gathering data from as many cases as they can to dig into the underlying reasons behind why certain patients like Lyman respond so well.
You can breathe normally.
Dr. Christopher Holmes is a bladder cancer specialist who treats a lot of patients on experimental immunotherapy drugs. He says he's been seeing more exceptional responders than ever before and is really looking to the science to help move new cancer treatments forward.
For those that have exceptional responses, we want to study those patients as deeply as possible and understand as much about their molecular mechanism, as well as their immune system and how it interacts with that cancer, to be able to translate those wonderful responses to other patients. Do you want to show me the rash on your...
While immunotherapy drugs show great promise, they can cause side effects like rashes or other organ problems that stem from an overstimulation of the immune system.
You never had fever?
I didn't have a fever, but I could go to sleep anytime I wanted to.
At the end of each of his visits with Lyman, Dr. Shepard always discusses potential side effects of the drug. So far, Lyman hasn't developed any major issues. For Lyman, being an exceptional responder has meant having a new lease on life. Back at his home in Warren, he talks about the joy of riding his bike again.
There was 2 years there, there was nothing going on, just surviving, I guess. You know, my lifestyle is outdoors in the summertime, morning till dark, and it was just shut down. After the 2 years, last year started third year started riding a little bike. Last year rode quite a bit. Gonna ride a lot this year.
While doctors don't know how long Lyman's therapy will continue to work, one thing they do know is that research into cases like his will help play a key role in developing new therapies.
Find all of IdeaStream's multiple media coverage of cancer issues online at ideastream.org/cancer.
You're watching the IdeaStream Be Well Network, your source for in-depth health news and information in Northeast Ohio.
Funding for Be Well comes from the Dr. Donald J. Goodman and Ruth Weber Goodman Philanthropic Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, the Margaret Clark Morgan Foundation, the McGregor Foundation, St. Luke's Foundation, the Mount Sinai Healthcare Foundation, the Woodruff Foundation, and the Community Foundation of Lorain County.
Did you know that elderly and disabled people make up only 12% of Medicaid recipients, but they receive nearly half the funds allocated to the program? Most elderly in nursing homes will at some point rely on Medicaid.
Medicaid now has become a middle-class entitlement for long-term care. It takes a lot of resources to be able to go through an extensive long-term care need without eventually needing to rely on Medicaid in some form or fashion.
IdeaStream applies its multiple media to health and science. Topics you've said are important through radio and television reports and a content-rich website. IdeaStream supports healthy people, healthy places, and a healthy future for our community. Interviewing the experts, revealing the research, helping you to be well. What matters most to you is on air, online, on IdeaStream.
You're watching the IdeaStream Be Well Network.
I'm Marlene Harris-Taylor. Lead poisoning and the problems it presents continue to surface in new ways across the Rust Belt. In Cuyahoga County, some 15% of children tested under the age of 6 have been lead poisoned at some point in their lives. Up next, we'll follow the struggles of some local parents and their children who've been poisoned by lead exposure. We'll also offer some tips for parents on navigating the challenges lead poisoning continues to pose in Northeast Ohio communities.
It made me feel like I wasn't being a good parent when I found out he had lead poisoning.
It impacts how they learn, how they develop, how they grow up.
It's most heavily in the inner cities where we have the older housing stock that has the old lead paint.
The problem is still in the African American community, and we need more funding to rectify it.
My number one worry is Carmelo's going to get worse.
Toxic homes, the fear and impact, next on Be Well, lead poisoning. Be Well is a multiple media health information project presented by WVIZ PBS, IdeaStream. Funding comes from the Dr. Donald J. Goodman and Ruth Weber Goodman Philanthropic Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, the Mount Sinai Healthcare Foundation, the McGregor Foundation, the Austin Memorial Foundation, and the Community Foundation of Lorain County.
Lead is toxic to young brains. And across Cuyahoga County, 15% of children tested under the age of 6 have been lead poisoned at some point since birth. And that's just the ones who've been tested. Hello, I'm Sarah Jane Tribble. This isn't just an inner city problem. It extends to many neighborhoods throughout Northeast Ohio. In the next half hour, we will unpack why this historic problem still plagues our community. We'll look at the medical impacts of lead on a child's developing brain. We'll talk about how kids get poisoned and how the chipping paint in old homes is more dangerous than it might seem. We'll also explore how our community is moving forward on this issue in spite of funding challenges. We start with a story from producer Kay Colby, which follows a local family's struggle with lead poisoning.
Come on, you gotta take your time.
Coloring shapes and giving love to the family puppy.
I love you.
Josh Holmes looks like a typical 3-year-old, but lodged deep in his bones, circulating through his blood, lurks an insidious enemy.
It made me feel like I wasn't being a good parent when I found out he had lead poisoning. And I know I'm a clean person. I keep my hygiene together. I keep my house together. What did I do wrong as a parent?
The father that I am, cleaning up after them, changing diapers, teaching them, what I can teach them. And something like that happened, it made me feel a little negligent, like it was my fault.
You want to go outside.
What Joe and Ebony Holmes didn't know is that the yellow house they were renting on Cleveland's near west side had become a serious threat. There are various ways children can become poisoned by lead. The most common originates from lead-based paint commonly used in homes built before the mid-1960s. Old paint chips shedding off poorly maintained walls and windowsills eventually turn into dust that contaminates surfaces or outside soil where children play.
If there's dust on the windowsills and it's got the lead in it, then they're touching the windowsills, hands are going to the mouth. All right, let's take a listen.
While poisoning can occur anywhere there's lead paint, the highest concentration of lead-poisoned children in Cuyahoga County live in inner-ring suburbs and urban neighborhoods.
A lot of them live in houses that they're renting, and the owners have not bothered to remove the lead because of the expense that comes with it.
Good breath. To this side?
Ohio law mandates that all low-income children on Medicaid be tested for lead exposure at age 1 and 2. A level of 5 or above is considered elevated. The level for Josh Holmes when he was age 2 was 49, a medical emergency.
So a level of 45 micrograms and higher are admitted to the hospital to get medicine called chelation to remove lead from the body. And in his case, he got an oral chelation medicine.
It's going to be real fast. Remember, you the big boy. You're the man.
Josh must now get regular blood draws to keep tabs on his lead levels, which still hover in the 30s. Even with treatment, some level of lead will always remain in his body.
It's hard, and it makes me cry because it's been a long time of pain, especially for something that's not his fault.
Children can face life-threatening medical problems from severe lead poisoning, but there can be other dangerous consequences even from low levels of exposure.
Kids can have problems such as hearing loss. They can have problems with an attention span. They can have a slight lowered IQ.
It impacts how they learn, how they develop, how they grow up, how they do in school.
And in some cases, it may also influence future behavior.
Research on children with lead poisoning shows consequences can stretch further than just lower IQ scores and other cognitive problems. Childhood lead poisoning has also been shown to be a risk factor for adult criminal behavior.
Lead exposure is certainly a factor. Our study was the first to really document it convincingly.
At the University of Cincinnati, Professor Kim Dietrich heads up the Cincinnati Lead Study, which has followed hundreds of lead-exposed children from birth into young adulthood. Among their findings, they found an association between lead poisoning and the number of arrests. Participants with the highest lead levels in childhood had the greatest number of arrests, including some for violent offenses, by the time they reached adulthood.
Lead exposure is not the complete story. It doesn't completely explain what's going on with these children. They have a lot of other challenges, but lead exposure is one of them.
Children who live in poverty and have the added burden of lead poisoning face a particularly tough road.
It's a double whammy, and it's unnecessary. And so the kids from the start, are already behind the 8 ball before they even get started with their life.
But experts all agree, lead poisoning does not have to be an automatic curse to a child's future. With access to early, high-quality health care, enriched educational programs, and good parenting, many poisoned children can thrive. Ebony and Joe Holmes remain dedicated to doing all they can for their son.
Here, Josh. Want an egg? What do you say?
Josh is now enrolled in a Head Start preschool, and the Holmes were able to move to a new, well-maintained home where Dad is quick to repair any cracking paint and Mom stays compulsive about dust. Still, Ebony Holmes continues to worry.
It's messing with his learning ability is what I fear about it. him being able to comprehend things fast. And he's pretty smart, you know. I think he beat the odds with it, but you never know. And it's a long life ordeal until he gets old enough for us to be able to recognize if he has an issue.
As the homes fight feelings of anger and guilt, they've also discovered a strong sense of purpose to educate other families about the dangers of lead poisoning.
I think it's been an experience to teach me and my husband something. Maybe this was our purpose. This happened to us for a reason, because we're able to talk about it and put it out there for people. You know, I'm not gonna say it was a curse. I'm not gonna say it was unfair. I'm gonna just say it was a lesson learned.
When I come home from work and he says, "Daddy, I miss you, Daddy. Daddy, that's my daddy." So that keeps me going forward, you know.
To talk through some of the issues that are brought up in this piece, we have Cuyahoga County Health Commissioner Terry Allen and Aisha Wilburn with the Centers for Families and Children. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
You're welcome.
Terry, let me start with you. As the County Commissioner on Health, the county's been fighting lead for decades now,
Right.
with lead abatement,
Right.
lead prevention efforts. Why are we still dealing with this problem?
Well, the big picture is that we have in Cuyahoga County somewhere on the order of, by estimation, 500,000 housing units. And we know that lead was used everywhere up until 1978 when it was no longer permitted. But there's lead in a lot of houses that's been painted over. When houses get refurbished, they're disturbing that paint. Or exteriors get scraped, they're disturbing the paint, or front porches get addressed, they're disturbing the paint. So unfortunately, lead will be with us for quite some time, but there are things we can do to address it.
I want to talk about those things in just a minute, but when we listen to the video and watch it and we see the effects on certain neighborhoods in particular, do you worry about the effects on society as a whole?
No question. I think in the greater Cleveland community, this is about the trajectory of the future workforce. These are kids who are already dealing with compounded disadvantages from poverty. And I think that we add lead, which is completely preventable, to that list. It's affecting their ability to reach their full potential. So we need to think about this as an issue for our workforce and doing what we can to help them.
Aisha, you work with children at a number of area preschools through the centers. And what are you seeing out there on the ground when you visit classrooms?
When I see the children in the classrooms, I see children who have been poisoned from 6 months to 5 years. And some of those children already, you see the effects from ADHD and behaviors. And like Terry said, we can't really see that full impact until, you know, they grow up and matriculate into early education. But we do see that in the classrooms, and we're seeing it early and earlier now.
I know one of the preschools I visited with the centers, 25% of the children there showed some level of lead poisoning. Yes. When you look at a situation like that, is that just in certain neighborhoods? Is it across the city that you're seeing that?
It's across the city in all of our centers. We are located in the inner ring suburbs. Basically, and you see those levels from 1 and up until 30 micrograms per deciliter for all the children.
30 micrograms per deciliter.
Yeah.
So Terry, you know, a lot of research has shown that there's an overlap between lead poisoning and other health outcome risks, such as high infant mortality, poverty, asthma rates. When you look at that, how can you vocalize how where you live impacts your health?
Well, we talk about the fact that place matters is our term that we use to describe that. It affects your health, wealth, your opportunity, and how long you'll live. And certainly when you're starting off as a child, and we talked about those compounding disadvantages, we're already facing a lot of challenges, but now you add the things you just described along with lead. It makes it tough. It's unfair in America. It's not a fair start.
Now, not to wrap it up too quickly, but the idea of prevention. There are things families can do. There's things that we saw in the video with Josh's parents. Aisha, can you talk a little bit about the prevention that we can do in our own homes?
Yes, when I go on home visits to educate parents about lead, I tell them, you know, the first thing you can do is take off your shoes when you come in the house, because you have areas with exposed soil. Take your shoes off. You can wet mop. You can wipe down the window sills on a regular basis. Make sure you're washing your hands, making sure you're, you know, sweeping and vacuuming on a regular basis. If you have someone that's working in automotive industry or painting, take off your clothes before you come in the house, or have a change of clothes in the garage, so you're not exposing your whole family to those fumes and to those toxins.
Those are great tips. Thank you so much for joining us today. Aisha, thank you, Terry, for being here.
Glad to be here.
It's great to have this conversation. You're tuned to a Be Well special on lead poisoning, the nagging problem that continues to haunt our community and impact young children. Thanks for joining us. You can find all of IdeaStream's reporting on lead on our website, wviz.org/lead. There, you can also search our interactive maps of Cuyahoga County to see how prevalent lead poisoning is in your neighborhood. That's wviz.org/lead. Experts agree preventing lead poisoning from happening in children in the first place should be our top priority. But as long as funding to fix old homes remains scarce and poverty keeps families from being able to fix or leave contaminated locations, the problem will persist. That leaves local and national advocates pushing for better ways to help poisoned children. We hear again from Kay Colby on how experts are turning to science to inform their efforts.
6-year-old Carmelo is proving to be quite a handful for his mother, Jackie Gandarella. She worries about his behavior, especially in school.
He will stomp his feet up and down. He would throw a tantrum. You can't calm him down.
So probably between like the vitamins and good nutrition.
Carmelo and his 2 younger siblings have tested positive for lead poisoning. Carmelo initially had a level of 33, which is 28 units above what is considered problematic.
When your lead is that high up, that affects your brain. Like, you can cause brain damage from that.
Jay Schneider is a Philadelphia researcher who studies the effects of lead on the brain. He presented some of his findings at the 2015 Healthy Homes and Lead Poisoning Conference in Cleveland. In one animal study, Schneider found that exposing brain tissue to even low levels of lead reduced the fiber connections brain cells use to communicate,
which can dramatically affect the way that brain is going to function later on.
Well, this is an actual human brain.
To understand the effects of lead on actual human brains, we need a quick lesson in anatomy. Neuropathologist Mark Cohen explains the average adult human brain weighs about 3 pounds, and functions are usually divided into left and right side activities.
In most patients and most people, the dominant hemisphere is the left, and what that means is that language function is handled predominantly on the left.
But when Kim Dietrich studied the brains of individuals who were lead poisoned as children, he found evidence that language and speech functions were taking place on the right side. Dietrich says such reorganization costs the brain in terms of overall function.
Any cost reduces the brain's total ability to fully function as it was meant to be wired.
Dietrich and his colleagues also found actual shrinkage in some areas of the brain of lead-poisoned individuals, especially among males.
We found that reductions in the cortical areas were in parts of the brain that are associated with judgment, impulse control, anticipation of consequences, areas that we associate, that psychologists call the executive functions.
Any concerns at all today?
Given the science, experts say society needs to rethink how it approaches the problem of childhood lead poisoning.
I think we need to really get into the mindset of just thinking about a lead-poisoned child as a child having a brain injury, and then deal with it from that perspective.
Dr. Dor Dearborn believes in the ability of the young brain to compensate from lead exposure when given early support. He chairs a Cuyahoga County task force dedicated to getting all lead-poisoned children into high-quality preschools. In the current system, he says it's hit or miss as to whether a lead-poisoned child gets any special help.
So there's a lot of holes in the education system that's not working for these kids.
Right. But we're learning where they are, and we're getting people to say, whoa, we should change that.
Dearborn points to data collected from the kindergarten readiness test of thousands of children in Cleveland public schools as justification to push for early intervention. Compared to the highest scoring students, kids with the lowest literacy scores were almost twice as likely to be lead poisoned. Dearborn remains especially worried about children with low levels of poisoning who often slip through the cracks and struggle in school. He says it can be one underlying factor, along with things like poverty, that can set children on the wrong path.
The problems that we see with inner city youth, the difficulty in school performance, the decreased graduation rate in our inner city high schools, aggressive bullying behavior, that's a significant societal impact.
Besides developing tailored educational programs for poisoned children, experts say it's also important to educate parents.
That's a key component with these children, is that the parents realize, hey, you know, I've got a behavioral problem kid, or I've got a kid that may not be performing in preschool or whatever as well. I need to spend more time with them. At home, I need to read to them. I need to work with them. And, you know, that's going to go a long ways.
You've done a great job. Thank you. Yeah, real good.
Jackie Gandarella regularly takes her children to Metro Health's lead clinic to keep tabs on their levels, which have fallen.
Marlo, come in the water.
At home, she washes their hands frequently. The house she rents has lots of chipping paint, and lead has been found in the soil.
You're trying to do some stuff around the house, right?
You're trying to the house, you know, the porch. I'm about to paint over everything with new paint, so maybe just to stop the lead from coming into his body.
So far, Gandarella says Carmelo has not received any special help in school, but each day she gets a report from his kindergarten teacher.
He brings a behavior chart home every day, and he has to get 9 stickers to get a treat.
Today's update shows Carmelo used profanity in math class.
And what made you write the B word on this paper? You wrote B word all over the paper. He was mad. Yes. My number one worry is Carmelo's gonna get worse into his behavior, or I'm not gonna be able to control it. I'm gonna try to get some type of help for him with that, like put him in counseling or something where they can help me with him with the behavior-wise.
As Carmelo hangs over the porch railing, his mother holds out hope. Maybe next week, he'll bring home those 9 stickers.
Carmelo's story is unfortunately all too common in certain areas of Northeast Ohio. So what can families like theirs do, and what kind of support is out there? Here to help answer that question are Robin Brown and her daughter Charmaine Patterson, and Dr. Dora Dearborn, a retired pediatrician and emeritus professor of environmental health at Case Western Reserve University's Medical School. Thank you for joining us, you guys. Now, I wanted to start with Robin and Charmaine. You guys have been living with lead much of Charmaine's life, and I wanted to just ask, what were the hurdles that you dealt with, and how did you kind of overcome them?
Well, most of the hurdles was within the school system, educating the teachers that she had lead poisoning and not making that as an excuse of her behavior or her academic level.
So you were proactive and you went and talked to the teachers before the school year started?
Yes, what I found best, and I did it both ways just to make sure. I initially told the teachers at the beginning of the school year that she was a lead poisoned child.
Okay.
One year I didn't do it, and it was a difference at that particular year. Her distraction in school was being very talkative. Most of the calls came because she was disrupting the class, being talkative. And with the ones who knew she had lead poisoning through the years, would actually let her talk to me out of the school phone of the classroom.
So they would send you over to the nurse's office and you could call maybe mom?
Well, no, they actually let her call from the actual room.
Oh, okay.
Of the, where they were located in, and call and talk to me so that she can get the, her nerves calmed down by speaking with me. The year that I didn't tell the teacher she was lead poisoning, she went to the office.
Do you remember this, Charmaine, at all?
No.
Okay, I want to come back to that, but I do want to ask Dr. Dora Dearborn, how is our community helping kids from an overarching perspective, kids with lead poisoning?
Well, our focus is to try to get high quality early education for these children that are having a deficit because of the lead poisoning. And Charmaine is an example of a major approach that we're trying to take, and that is to get the parents involved.
Right.
Robin started with Charmaine when she was very young, and that helps a great deal. Not only the daycares and the special education programs and the elementary school, but the parents to start this at an early age, as soon as it's recognized that there is a problem, when they're 2-3 years old, to start working with them.
And you discovered that Charmaine had lead poisoning of what level at what age, Robin?
She was 4 years old, and her level was 70 micrograms per deciliter, which is high enough for a deaf seizure coma level.
And treatment in
and
the hospital.
treatment had to be given to her through chelation therapy for 5 days.
Okay.
It's a 5-day treatment.
Now, Charmaine, what were kind of the challenges you faced in school? I know you're still going to school and in college actually now, which is congratulations. So what were those challenges and how did you kind of overcome those?
The main challenges was just knowing the limits that people put on me by being a lead poisoned child, and just knowing that I want to overcome that. I just knew that I didn't want those limits to always hold me back, so I think I used that as like a push.
A motivational factor. That speaks to your strength. Now, what is it about the education techniques that Robin was using that you're hoping that the universal preschools will help do? Is it kind of that working on focus, or what are those things that we can see our community kind of taking hold of and doing in the next coming years?
At this stage, it's doing high quality early education.
Okay.
CDC released a working group report calling for educators to develop specific educational programs for lead-poisoned children. Now that we better understand the things of executive function and impulse control and reading deficits and language problems, to develop some specific programs. Until those specific programs have been developed, though, we are turning to what we call high-quality early education.
Right.
In our high-quality programs, in the universal pre-K programs throughout the county, but also using programs like Bright Beginnings and Spark, which are family-oriented programs, not just for the child, but for the parents, to be intimately involved in the development of the children's literacy preschool.
Okay, great. And so in the coming years, we're going to see Northeast Ohio really kind of help guide those children into those high quality preschools and use some of the techniques that Robin used at home with Charmaine.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks so much for joining us, you guys. I really appreciate it. Robin, Charmaine, and Dr. Dearborn. It's helpful to learn about these experiences. If you have concerns about lead poisoning impacting your family, here are a few tips. Ask your pediatrician about testing your child for lead, especially if you live in an older home or have recently renovated. If your child tests positive for lead, make sure he or she eats foods rich in iron and calcium, takes a daily fortified vitamin, and enrolls in a high-quality preschool. Limit exposure to lead dust by washing hands frequently, wiping down floors and windowsills, and removing shoes while indoors. To permanently remove lead from your home, or if you're considering remodeling an older home, hire a contractor certified to deal with lead safely. The EPA website has a list of them. You can also call the Ohio Department of Health with medical questions about lead poisoning and to get more information on reducing lead exposure in your home. And finally, calling your local health department or tenants organization may be helpful as well to see what community resources are available. Over the last half hour, we've heard about the real impacts of lead exposure on kids, families, and our community as a whole. We at IdeaStream will continue to follow this pressing health concern, and we invite you to tune in. You can find all of our radio, TV, and online stories about lead at wviz.org/lead. I'm Sarah Jane Tribble. Thanks for joining us.
Have you had to deal with lead poisoning or removing lead from your home? Tell us your story at BeWellHealth@ideastream.org. For more on IdeaStream's coverage of Northeast Ohio's lead crisis, be sure to visit us online at ideastream.org/lead. And for all of IdeaStream's Be Well Health news and information for our community, come see us at bewell.ideastream.org. Also, you can get the latest in health news and information every month by signing up for IdeaStream's Be Well e-newsletter. Sign up online at ideastream.org/ehealthnews. I'm IdeaStream's Marlene Harris Taylor. Thanks for joining us, and be well.
Go to health.ideastream.org to visit the Be Well website. You'll find information, links, videos, and radio stories, all designed to help you better understand obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Find out how you and your family can take advantage of free health screenings at area hospitals. And view special content provided by our partner, Net Wellness, a consumer health website from Case Western Reserve University, The Ohio State University, and the University of Cincinnati. Visit health.ideastream.org and be well.